Well, at 6 o'clock, I'd like to call the Madison City Council regular meeting to order, and Mr. Jason Coley is going to lead us in prayer.
Let's pray. Heavenly Father, we thank you so much for this time to assemble for this meeting tonight. We thank you for these individuals who've stepped up to serve our city. We just pray that you'll help them to serve with humility and wisdom that they get from your divine wisdom. We just pray for this city as we go through this holiday season. We pray for those, God, who are hurting this time of year, and we pray for those who just need a little help. We pray that as citizens of the city, we'll reach out to those who need it. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Jason. And please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Can I get the roll call, please?
Mayor Finley.
Here.
Councilmember Robleski.
Here.
Councilmember Spears.
Here.
Councilmember Powell.
Here.
Council President Shaw.
Here.
Councilmember Bartlett.
Here.
Councilmember Denzine.
Here.
Councilmember Seifert.
Here. We have a quorum, so we'll move forward. Are there any changes to the printed agenda?
I have one addition to the consent agenda, and it will be item 9P. And this is Resolution 2021-385R to accept a settlement in the amount of $62,456 from the State of Alabama settlement with Endo Pharmaceuticals in the opioid litigation.
All right. Is that the only change that we have tonight? So we'll move forward with that. As for approval of minutes from the November 22nd meeting.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion is second. Is there any discussion? If not, can I get the vote, please?
Councilmember Powell.
Aye.
Councilmember Spears.
Aye.
Councilmember Robleski.
Aye.
Council President Shaw.
Aye.
Councilmember Bartlett.
Aye.
Councilmember Denzine.
Aye.
Councilmember Seifert.
Abstain.
Motion passes. Next is for the November 22nd work session.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Can I get the vote, please?
Councilmember Powell.
Aye.
Councilmember Spears.
Aye.
Council President Shaw.
Aye.
Councilmember Robleski.
Aye.
Councilmember Bartlett.
Aye.
Councilmember Denzine.
Aye.
Councilmember Seifert.
Abstain.
Motion passes. Moving to presentation and awards, and we'll start with the presentation of service award pin.
Good evening, all. This is something that we usually do in the workplace, but Tracy Sherman, one of our dispatchers, has reached her 25th year with the city, and we think that's a pretty big deal. So we wanted to do this presentation here at City Council to properly recognize her. She's put in 25 years at a very, very tough job as a dispatcher, a very stressful job. And all of our citizens have to be thankful that people like Tracy are there, that calm voice at the other end of the phone when they call 911 and they need somebody in an emergency. We want to thank her for 25 years of service. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have a presentation from Mr. Willis with the Enrichment Center.
Hi, I'm Sharon Willis, the Executive Director of the Enrichment Center, and I know you all have seen our Exhibit A. I just wanted to first thank Mayor Paul Finley and the City Council for your support of our funding application. It's amazing the support that you give us allows us to provide direct evidence-based mental health counseling to students in every school in Madison City. And for that, we are extremely grateful, and we love our job. Our counselors really enjoy what they're doing, and we're blessed to serve a lot of students. This year, we've added a counselor to serve Midway Elementary, and we plan on adding another counselor to serve Journey Middle School. So Madison keeps growing, and we keep growing to take care of the kids here, and we're very excited about that. During the school year, our counselors serve hundreds of students, literally, in Madison City. And they provide well over 3,000 individual sessions to students. And that's not counting crisis situations. That's seriously individual students that we get to meet and work with. And we're really grateful for that. So we really continue to support the staff with information concerning mental health issues in the schools. And we also support the parents through just whatever we can do as far as presentations regarding mental health issues. So I don't want to take a lot of your time, but thank you very much. And let you know that as much as I hate to, I'm going to retire a second time. I'm retired from Madison City in 2016, and now I'm retiring as executive director. But Allison Spratley, who has worked with me for the last 3 years, is going to be taking over my position. And she also worked with me at Discovery, so I know what kind of really awesome teacher and now awesome director she's going to be. So again, thank you for your support, and we're so excited to continue working in Madison City through the Enrichment Center. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Sharon, for all you've done for our students and families.
Next, we have a presentation from Madison Animal Rescue.
Good evening. Mickey Bennett, Director of MARF. See a lot of familiar faces. Hello. We're here to thank you for your support of Madison Animal Rescue. We truly value your support and the wonderful relationship that we have with Madison Animal Control. Your support to our organization helps us to continue to take care of the animals of Madison. We've had over 200 adoptions this year so far, and we have also started helping the people of Madison when they can't afford to keep their animals. We have paid for surgeries. We have helped out with food and heartworm medication until people get back on their feet. And because we'd much rather have an animal stay with their owner where they're loved than to give them up to us. So without the support of you guys and others in the community, we wouldn't be able to do that. And as always, the appropriation will be used to spay, neuter, rabies, and then treat, as always, heartworm positive dogs or infections or ear broken bones, pregnant dogs and pregnant cats. We get them all. So thank you very much. We appreciate your support.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much.
And we're going to have to leave early because Donna and I are both blind, night blind.
Yes, ma'am.
We'll give you a head start of the parking lot.
Yes.
You betcha. Understand. Can I do one more?
Yes, absolutely. Mayor's got it.
I've got one more. We do service awards. There's times when it seems like a year, and there's times when it seems like 1 year seems like a dog year. And if you're in IT, today's world, it seems like a dog year. But in Jason's case, he's made it 10 human years. And we are very appreciative of Jason Coley and everything he does as our Director of IT. That is absolutely not an easy job in today's world. And I am not about to jinx anything other than say that we continue to be very appreciative of everything that you guys do to keep us safe and protected in this city. And we hope we continue that way, knowing full well what's happening each and every day. Jason, thank you so much for your 10 years.
All right, that ends the presentation and awards for tonight, and we'll move into public comments. We've got a couple people that have signed up. We'll ask if you're wanting to speak on the Halsey project. Wait till the public hearing, which will be just in a few minutes. Well, I know we had one signed up. Miss Laura. Okay. Absolutely. And Miss Beebe?
Mm-hmm.
Are we going to do what?
No.
She has 5 minutes.
She wants 8 minutes.
No, ma'am. I mean, you can. We're just asking to wait till it's relevant. But
Right.
if you want to come talk, all right,
but-
absolutely. Come on.
Yeah. And you get 5 minutes in the public hearing and 3 minutes, okay.
Okay, I was gonna talk about the traffic, which is, that's what I talk about, and I'm gonna continue to talk about it until something's done about it. But could you please tell me when anybody is ever working on Sullivan and Hughes Road? I don't go by there every day. I drive by there enough, and I never see anybody working.
So I mean,
When do they
I could
work
get,
on this road?
yeah,
These
I don't,
roads?
yeah, I don't think,
People ask me, I run into them,
I'm gonna be quiet
Okay,
until you
I'm
tell me that I
sorry.
can
Go
get you an
on.
answer.
Go on.
No, because I don't want to take your minutes. I think Michelle could give us a full answer, and I'm not sure if engineering is speaking or not. But I think in this case, Hughes Road, there hasn't been a lot of work on that lately, and a lot of it comes with, utility mitigation as far as figuring out how to do that. And I think it's when we were and had a crew on site, unfortunately, the boss was hired by another company and took his entire paving crew with him. And so when they left the site, we haven't been able to get the site out, the crew out of Coleman back up here to take care of that. So we absolutely have paid for the job shortage as far as people. I think they also have waited on utility mitigation. That's in our side right now. Are we done with that yet? Please, come on.
Okay,
No, she's coming, and yes, your time is, yeah.
are you saying that it is ready to be paved?
I think, no, not even close. But Michelle can give you an idea, and then she can give you an idea on Sullivan Street too. If you don't mind, please. Thank you, Michelle.
No worries. So Hughes, we're revising the east side drainage. So we ran into an issue with the existing utilities, and in order to try and eliminate as many conflicts as possible, we've revised the plans. We sent them back for comment. They came back in early last week. I need to get them reviewed, and then once they are ready to go, there's still 2 or 3 water line conflicts that need to be vetted. And then once that happens, Carcel and G will then remob to the site once the utility conflicts have been dealt with. But there's no point for them to remob out there because there's nothing for them to do until that work is taken care of.
Okay.
So currently they are on a time stop right now until we can work through those issues. Sullivan is on a time stop right now. They basically are trying to get from the creek up to Kaiser resurfaced with the wearing surface, the final surface, and then finish up that section. We're holding at the creek on the west side. They have to finish out the head wall on that side, but there's a giant electric pole that we're trying to make sure we can reconfigure and work around and fill around it without any potential problems, and then they will finish that out and then work to resurface and stripe that piece to finish it out. But until I get that resolved, that they are also holding.
So on your utility, so I've had this question, so on your utility conflicts on Hughes,
Yes.
the question would be, why weren't those figured out on the front end? So how, did we not know that they were going to be there, or is this part of the entire procedure, or?
Some of them we probably could have vetted a little bit better. Other ones we didn't know exact depths because we didn't do potholding on the front end. Potholding is generally so you can pay for it on the front end, and we may look at doing that in the future to try and eliminate some of these conflicts. But currently that was not done on this project.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you for the update.
Thank you. Does anyone else like to address Mayor and Council? If not, we'll move into the consent agenda and Finance Committee report.
Okay, I've got that. Most of the consent agenda items are finance-related. I will note that the Finance Committee is moving to monthly meetings, and our next meeting will be on Wednesday, the 15th at 9 a.m. And then we'll be sending out a schedule beginning in January for our monthly meetings. And one of the things we'll be going over are consent agenda items at those meetings. But in addition to the amendment that we just did, adding item P for the opioid settlement and the other items listed on the consent agenda, I'd like to move to approve.
Second.
Motion is second. Is there any discussion? Not, can I get the vote, please?
Councilmember Bartlett,
Aye.
Councilmember Powell,
Aye.
Council President Shaw,
Aye.
Councilmember Roblesky. Aye. Councilmember Spears.
Aye.
Councilmember Denzine.
Aye.
Councilmember Seifert.
Aye.
Motion passes. Now we'll move into presentation of reports, and we'll start with the mayor.
All right, and I'll start by asking for council approval on resolution number 2021-333-R, approving the annual appropriation agreement with the Enrichment Center for their FY22 amount of $10,000 to be paid from the general operating account.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion is second. Is there any discussion? Can I get the vote, please?
Councilmember Spears,
Aye.
Councilmember Denzine,
Aye.
Council President Shaw,
Aye.
Councilmember Roblesky,
Aye.
Councilmember Powell,
Aye.
Councilmember Bartlett,
Aye.
Councilmember Seifert.
Aye.
Motion passes.
All right, I'll follow that up by asking for council approval with resolution number 2021-338-R, approving the annual appropriation agreement with MARF for the FY '22 amount of $15,000 to be paid from the general operating account.
Move to approve. Second.
Motion and second. Is there any discussion?
I hate that they left because I did actually want to thank them publicly about their service for Madison. I follow MARF on Facebook and encourage everyone to. They've had frustrations with getting a number of fosters. In 2020, they took in 115 dogs and cats from the city of Madison. So far this year, they've taken in 61. And I know that the $15,000 appropriation sounds like a lot of money, but when they do have to do all of the work that they do on the animals that come in, most of them need to be spayed or neutered, they need shots, they often receive surgery, and in addition to the medical issues, they often don't have enough foster homes. So a lot of the animals that MARF brings in go into boarding, some for several years. So if anyone is interested in fostering, please consider reaching out to your local rescue. And also wanted to say that the MARF appropriation is very different than our other appropriations, like we have for National Child Advocacy Center or the Emergency Management Agency. This appropriation is open to any rescue that would like to apply for it. So my hope is that one day that the rescues will work together. The appropriation request is due in the summer, so if there are any rescues that would like to apply for it, they're welcome to. And I just wanted to say thank you again to MARF for all the work that they've done. And I know that they join me in asking you to please spay and neuter your pet and also put in a microchip so that the lost animals that are turned into Madison can be returned to their owners. Thank you.
Can I get the vote, please?
Councilmember Seifert,
Aye.
Councilmember Powell,
Aye.
Council President Shaw,
Aye.
Councilmember Roblesky,
Aye.
Councilmember Spears,
Aye.
Councilmember Bartlett,
Aye.
Councilmember Denzine.
The motion passes.
All right, and two other quick things. One is, we talked at the last meeting about our governance transition team. They've continued to meet. They are in process now, I think, of maybe one last meeting and some final reports. What we recognize is we had talked about them coming at the next meeting, but it being over the Christmas holidays, it may be the lowest attended meeting we have. It's not the most optimal time. We're going to push that for them to present to Mayor and Council on January 10th to give their update to us and obviously to the community. So just going to push that back and let folks know. And then lastly, the city has had a lot of events over the course of the last 2 weeks for when it comes to Christmas. So many of them that have been so successful. And I want to thank our Madison team that continues to do that. Many times they're led by Recreation. I know they then need support from Public Works, from police, from fire. And we've done an incredible job of working together. And especially during the parade where, again, from a safety standpoint, when we're talking to them as far as what do we do to make sure that we have an incredibly wonderful time, but we stay safe, we listened to what they asked us to do to make it the best parade, and it was a great parade. We'll continue to look to maximize our routes for everything that we can do, but as they've done that, thank you guys for everything that you've done. It's been a neat Christmas season so far. That's all I have.
District number 1.
Yes, sir. The first item I have for you, I need to request that we suspend the rules. So I make a motion that we would suspend the rules so that we can consider ordinance number 2021-370 to amend Section 2 of the Equal Employment Opportunity of the City of Madison Personnel Policies and Procedures.
Got a motion? Motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Megan, is all right with this? All right. Can I get the vote, please?
Councilmember Roblesky.
Aye.
Councilmember Spears.
Aye.
Council President Shaw.
Aye.
Councilmember Powell.
Aye.
Councilmember Bartlett.
Aye.
Councilmember Denzine.
Aye.
Councilmember Seifert.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Very good. Now I'd like to present for consideration and vote ordinance number 2021-370 to amend Section 2 of our Madison City Personnel Policy. Director Towery is here if we have any questions, but the HR committee met last week. We unanimously support this decision as it expands the language for more clarity to our personnel action.
Is that a motion?
That's a motion. It's a very long-winded motion.
Motion and a second. Is there any other discussion?
I would just like to thank Terry. She spent time with me today talking about this. I have great understanding, and I appreciated her time, so thank you.
Can I get the vote, please?
Councilmember Robleski?
Aye.
Councilmember Spears?
Aye.
Council President Shaw?
Aye.
Councilmember Powell?
Aye.
Councilmember Bartlett?
Aye.
Councilmember Denzine?
Aye.
Councilmember Seifert?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you all very much. I wanted to echo Mayor Finley's comments and thank everyone that was involved in the parade, and also wanted to give a shout out to the library who gave out hot chocolate to hundreds of people. They ran out, so that's always a good sign. We had a huge turnout. Councilmember Spears and the mayor and I attended the Alabama Legislative Luncheon today, and that was very informative as the session opens in January. As many know, I have taken over the Shop Local Spotlight from Councilmember Bartlett as a chamber liaison, and my Madison location tonight is Main Street Cafe in District 3. Many of you that might be new to the area may not know that the cafe was once the city jail. So if you go there for lunch, you can actually sit in one of the jail cells. And I did pull this off the website because I thought it was really interesting. It says that at one time, the west end of the building was used for the mayor's office, city clerk's treasurer's office, the water department, the collections clerk, the inspector's desk, and a long counter for handling city licenses and other public requests. The center of the building was the volunteer fire department and the one fire truck that they had at the time. There was a siren on the top of the building that could be triggered by the police chief or the city clerk. I thought that was interesting. And then on the outside of the building, there was a button that the public could actually press the button, and it would release a siren for the building. So if you haven't been to Main Street, I really encourage you to go. It's just a wonderful place for lunch and just a lot of history, and one of our places to go to in Madison. And that's all I have.
Thank you. District number 2.
Well, Mara covered most of everything.
Sorry.
But, couple of things. We had a tree lighting downtown on a week ago Thursday, wasn't it, Paul?
Yes, ma'am.
And the mayor read a story, and it was great. We had about 400 people at least downtown. The roads were blocked off. Everybody was waiting for the tree lighting. It was just an exciting time to be there. If you have not been downtown, you need to drive down Christmas card row and see all the Christmas cards that were painted by local artists. Go downtown and see the wonderful ornament we have. If you propose to your fiance this Christmas, I'm just saying that's the place to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And I want a picture. But anyway, it is. People were lined up during the tree lighting. They were lined up during Christmas capers the other day to take pictures in this ornament. It's really cute. Family Christmas cards, a great place to be. But I want to thank Councilmember Bartlett for leading that charge to get us that ornament, and for Councilmember Powell for letting us put it in his district.
Letting you. Sounds like I'm at home.
But anyway, I hope y'all all have a wonderful holiday season, and if you need us, email, call us. We'll do our best to answer your questions. Thank you.
Thank you. District number 3.
I like that letting you. That sounds like I'm at home. My wife lets me do things. Yeah, I wanted to echo that. Basically, to the group that works here with the city, and also the Arts Council, the Historic Society, all those groups are involved. It's just everybody comes together, and I'm just happy we get to have it. Last year we didn't have this, so I'm grateful to be here. I'm grateful to be able to have Christmas, downtown again, or just even in the city. And though I would like the parade to be downtown, I understand the safety aspect of it, and hopefully we can expand that. But again, just grateful to have it. So that's all I've got.
Very good. District number 5.
I want to give a really big shout out and thank you to Parks and Rec. Corey, Kelly, crew, you're the ones that put that ornament together and got it done in record time so we could have it for Wassel Fest. So I really appreciate all of you who assembled that to get that ready. The Christmas parade was so much fun. It was my first time to get to participate as a council member, and so that was a lot of fun. I want to thank Debbie Overcash, who really did lead the charge for a lot of these events and the groups that Teddy mentioned. It really takes a wonderful community to pull things like that together. And finally, I really want to congratulate our Chamber of Commerce, their new director, Michelle Epling. I have watched and been able to be their liaison for a year, but Michelle and the mayor have been doing these awesome videos each week highlighting all of our activities and things to do. Shop local. If you want it under the tree in time, you need to shop local. Thanks, that's it.
Very good. District number 6.
All right, Connie, you thought it was tough going second. All right, everything they said, all right, it has been just, this is what Madison is. It's the community, and to have this hometown feel in this community is wonderful. So everything from the tree lighting to the parade to the chickens come flying off the roof yesterday, all of it was great. And I would like to add a special thank you to all the local merchants. Over $3,300 was donated yesterday for the prizes. And I thought that was just so generous of all the merchants. So thank you to all of y'all that did that. And yeah, this is just a wonderful place to live. I texted somebody and said it's like living in a Hallmark movie. And it kind of really is. And that's because of the citizens and how wonderful everybody is. And Debbie Overcash especially, she just works so hard. So, and I would like to thank the police chief and fire chief for all the safety along the parade route. I don't know if anybody noticed, and you probably didn't because it was so well done. But there were trucks, there were dump trucks, there were buses put in the way so nobody could come in and get us on that parade route. And it's sad that it's like that, but I'm so grateful that we are proactive and that we are protected. So I wish to thank y'all for doing that. That was really good. And everybody, just have a really wonderful Christmas this year. Spend time with family, shop locally, do all those good things. One other thing is the Madison Police Advisory Committee. I got a message that I'd like to read out from their secretary. It says that they've had 3 meetings so far this year, and the last one was about the Commission on Accreditation for Law Enforcement Agencies. Not everybody understands what that is, but that is such a high order that our police department has. And I wish I could have been there to hear all about it, but it's just one more thing that our police are doing to learn more and to be more proactive in our community and more compassionate and kind in their service also. They have their next meeting isn't until January 18th. They're just kind of giving December time. But they are going to be coming out with a newsletter also. So those that really want to be involved, I really would encourage you to reach out to one of the representatives. They're listed in our directory. And let them know if you have any concerns, especially over this Christmas season, anything that's happening. But that sort of thing. But, yeah, that's all I have. But Merry Christmas, everyone.
Thank you so much. District number 7.
Yeah, so I'll echo what everybody else said. But I was unable to attend the events, but talked to many people outside, those at work. It was interesting. Folks from actually Huntsville and Decatur came here for the parade, and lots of good reports on it. So thanks to all those that had a hand in putting that together. I know it's a lot of coordination across many departments. And then also I want to thank Parks and Rec as well as our schools. Right now we've got basketball going on, and just with the COVID environment and everything, the dynamic there of getting folks into the schools and masked up in the appropriate way and all those things, that's a huge challenge. And so I appreciate you guys working together on that to allow that to happen this year. It did not happen last year. And so far, we'll cross our fingers and knock on wood that everything stays good. But I really appreciate y'all allowing that for our kids to take part in those activities. So that's it.
Very good. As long as we're thanking everybody, I would like to thank Lowe's. The Lowe's over here on 72, they're the ones that donate the trees for the Tinsel Trail. And a lot of people, they may not know that, but we've worked with them for the past, several years, and they'll either donate or they'll give them to us at their cost. So that's a huge help for us. So now we'll move into, board committee appointments, and we have one reappointment tonight.
It's for zoning board of appeals, adjustments and appeals, and I'd like to nominate David Kessler. It's actually a reappointment.
Is there anyone else like to appoint someone? If not, we'll reappoint, David Kessler for position 1 through acclamation. Now we'll move into public hearings. Mary Beth.
The first item that you have is proposed ordinance 2021-318, and this is a zoning request, if the property is annexed, and that's subsequent, it's later in your agenda. This is a approximate 1-acre property on the south side of Cannon Drive. There is an existing house there. The property would be zoned R1A, which is a low-density residential zoning upon annexation. The Planning Commission and staff are recommending approval. There weren't any concerns when this came before the Planning Commission, so we're asking for your approval of this zoning.
Move to approve.
Gonna open the public hearing. Motion to close it. Open it up. Do we have to vote on that?
No.
You
No.
just
Just
open it up.
open the
Does anybody,
And then you close it.
would anyone like to address council? If not, we'll close the public hearing. Would the owners like to address council about anything? I don't think so. If not, we'll close it and ask for a motion.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion is second. Is there any other discussion? If not, can I get the vote, please?
Councilmember Powell,
Aye.
Councilmember Spears,
Aye.
Councilmember Roblesky,
Aye.
Council President Shaw,
Aye.
Councilmember Bartlett,
Aye.
Councilmember Denzine,
Aye.
Councilmember Seifert.
Aye.
Motion passes.
The next item on your agenda is also a zoning request, and there are 2 other components on your agenda later on in the meeting. This part of my presentation is only addressing the zoning request, and the other components will be addressed when we get to them on the agenda. So before you, you have proposed ordinance 2021-320, and this is to zone approximately 118 acres, combination of cluster zoning and agricultural zoning. If we can go, oh, I've got the little control, isn't that handy? So this is the subject property. It's just west, kind of northwest of Hardiman Road and east of Seegers Road. The property is largely vacant. There is an existing single-family home on the property, and there are barns and accessory structures. If this project goes forward, that existing home would be turned into a clubhouse for the homeowners association. This represents the proposed and existing zoning around the area. Approximately 17 acres of the site would be zoned agricultural. You can see that dash green area. And the remainder, 101 acres, would be zoned RC2, which is the city's cluster zoning. As you can see from the graphic, the surrounding property is a variety of residential zoning categories as well as agricultural zoning. There's a lot of R3A zoning. There's also R2 zoning that predominates in the area. One of the requirements for cluster zoning is that a development plan be submitted. And this is an unusual or a different requirement that we have for other zoning requests. So normally, for a regular zoning, like a commercial zoning or even an R1A zoning, there's no development plan that's presented. But for our cluster zoning, we require that. Part of the reason that we require that is we want to see what's going to be set aside for open space, as an example. Because cluster zoning requires at least 20% of a site be set aside for open space. So for this particular development plan, they're proposing 201 single-family homes, 24 acres of open space, which works out to be about 24% of the site. That open space would include walking paths and a multi-use path along the creek. There is a school site, which would be where the agricultural zoning is proposed. You can see that highlighted in blue on this graphic. And then there's an east-west connector, which is basically the extension of Hardiman Road, which is our Halsey Road, I should say, over to Maciel. So this represents their development plan. They have 4 different product types. So one of the things, this is, again, we're talking about zoning right now. One of the things that we look at when we're evaluating our zoning request is what is around the property. We're looking at adjacent development, compatibility. So on this graphic, we're showing you what the densities of the properties around this property are, developed at. So you've got, a lot of the property is developed, or the projects are developed at about 2 units per acre. There are some that are lower than that. Stillwater Cove is about 1 unit per acre. You've got Taylor's Crossing, which is about 0.7. But then you've got properties that are over 2 units to the acre. But the average is right around 2 units to acre, which is what this project is proposing. It's coming in at 1.99 units per acre. We'll round that up to 2. And so in general, we would say that the density that's proposed here is compatible with the surrounding area when you look at all of these subdivisions and how they're developed. Some of the densities are lower in some of the subdivisions because they have a lot more open space, or, might have been set aside as wetlands or for stormwater purposes. The other piece of information that is on this slide is the lot sizes for this proposed project. There's a table there that's inserted. So as I mentioned, there are 4 different product types. The largest estate lots, there's only 6 of those, but their average lot size is about 27,000 square feet. Then the next group, you can see the 3 different categories that follow. So 2 of the product types, when we look at their average densities, are basically the equivalent of a low-density project, our R1A zoning. Then we have about 57 lots that are R2 zoning equivalent, which again is around the surrounding area. And then they have 95 lots, which are their cottage homes, that are the equivalent of an R3A zoning. So one of the things that we liked about this project from a planning perspective is the fact that they do have a variety of housing types. So it addresses different needs within the market. So from a public policy perspective, we think that's a very good thing. But overall, you can see that the zoning density of this project and the lot sizes, the average lot sizes in the min are very comparable with what's around in the surrounding property. So the second consideration when we're evaluating zoning is what do our master plans call for this area. So the city has a master plan that was adopted in 2016 for the Westside. It's called the Westside Master Plan. And actually taking a step prior to that was the growth plan that was done in 2012, because the city's comprehensive plan, which was done back in the late 90s and early 2000s, didn't really address the West Side. So the growth plan in 2012 created what we call a key development area in growth plan terminology, and said, hey, in this West Side area, we really need to study this some more. So go do a more detailed study. That's what happened with the West Side Master Plan. That was a response to an action item in the growth plan. So the West Side Master Plan looked at the entire West Side, which actually includes some land east of County Line Road. And the graphic on my left shows what is called for in this area. So you have mixed residential here, mixed residential conservation, and parks and natural area. So this is mixed residential here, mixed residential conservation, and parks and natural area. So the West Side Master Plan also was looking to achieve a variety of housing types, and actually at the time was trying to recommend from doing standard single-family subdivisions just to try and diversify the housing portfolio in Madison. So when we look at what the applicant is proposing compared with what the 2016 West Side Master Plan is, we can see that in the middle graphic. And you'll see that the mixed residential area is almost identical in terms of what the applicant's proposing and in terms of what the West Side Master Plan called for. The introduction of the school element resulted in the applicant proposing a change in the land use. And the school district was, when this project came about, the school district was given a choice of where to locate the school within this area. Really looking at the current location and also looking at it on the south side of that street, if you will, in what's called the mixed residential area. So with the introduction of the school, the applicant is requested to effectively move that mixed residential conservation here, up here. As you can see, there's mixed residential conservation called for here and mixed residential conservation here. So they're moving this piece up to here. The parks and natural area is reduced with this current plan. When we did the Westside Master Plan in 2016, what our consultants did is they looked at aerial photographs, and wherever they saw trees or a creek, they made that P&A. It could have been trees that were planted for lumber to be harvested. It could have been natural growth trees. We really didn't discern in terms of the quality. Regardless, a lot of this area got identified as P&A. So the applicant would be reducing that P&A. It does cover the creeks, and what is proposed as P&A would be open space with walking paths and so forth. So just to touch on the school site, I mentioned the introduction of the school site on this property. And the last graphic there on my right, the blue square down here, shows where a school site was proposed in the Westside Master Plan. So when we went through the Westside Master Plan exercise in 2016, we knew new schools were going to be needed. We worked with the school district to identify conceptually, because nobody's got a crystal ball, but conceptually on the west side where those schools might be located to serve the district's need. And that blue square was one that was identified by school board members at the time. So what we are proposing is basically having that blue square move up to here. Move from here to here. We think that, well, and I'll come back to the analysis that we did for the Westside Master Plan and subsequent transportation plan related to that. Overall, we like the location of this. It meets the district's needs. In our consultation with the district, it would put the school site on a collector road that we know could be built. So we think it makes sense. When we did the Westside Master Plan, obviously we identified that there would be a school there. In 2018, the city updated its transportation master plan, and as part of that transportation plan, the city's broken into, I think it's about like 40 some odd traffic analysis zones. And within each traffic analysis zone, what we had to do was assume a certain amount of land use. So in the west side, for this area, we assumed an elementary school as part of our analysis. So it's kind of, it's related to zoning, but it goes beyond zoning in that, we've already analyzed future traffic based upon build out of this area effectively, including an elementary school that was built into our model. So not only do we think that this works in terms of consistency with the Westside Master Plan, we feel confident that we've anticipated the development impacts in terms of transportation, right? Because we've assumed an elementary school in our transportation model related to this. So to summarize for the zoning component of this presentation, the applicant has met our cluster zoning requirements, which are basically to provide a development plan and to meet the minimum 20% open space set-aside requirement. We think that the zoning is compatible with the surrounding property in terms of the fact that there are similar densities, similar effectively zoning and housing types proposed with what's around the surrounding property. The zoning is consistent with the Westside Master Plan. They've provided a mixture of housing types and densities, which is what the master plan had wanted and recommended. The location of the residential development is largely consistent. Again, there is that shift in the MRC as a result of the school site, and we've shifted the school site further north. But we think that those are all workable. And and one of the understandings when the Westside Master Plan was adopted is that it was a 5,000-foot level. And as you get specific development proposals, sometimes you're going to make adjustments. But we think that these adjustments are minor enough and consistent enough with the Westside Master Plan. So in conclusion, with respect to the zoning aspect of this, staff and the Planning Commission are supporting this zoning request. Later in your agenda, you've got a development agreement and you've got an annexation. So if you take an action on the zoning right now to, let's say, approve it, that only becomes effective if you subsequently approve the annexation. So in other words, you can take a motion now to approve the zoning. if for some reason you don't approve the annexation, then your action on the zoning is moot. It doesn't mean anything. Does that make sense to everybody? In other words, you don't have to wait to act on the zoning until later. You can choose to do that, but you can also just take action on it now, knowing that you've got the other votes related to the annexation. One last note I will make, in case it comes up during the public hearing, is when the Planning Commission acted on the project, they asked for a signed deal with the school district before the annexation is approved. This is the zoning request, it's not the annexation, and so I'm sure we'll talk about that later, but this zoning is independent of that. Happy to answer any questions before the public hearing if you would like.
All right, we'll open the public hearing, and we'll start with Dr. Ed Nichols.
Dear members of the council, thank you for allowing us to come tonight. First of all, I would like to thank the mayor and thank the members of the council as well as the staff of the city. I was here almost a year ago. I was looking at notes earlier. I think it was December the 28th. I can't imagine that we met then, but I think that was right. To talk about growth and where we were, and at that time you were looking at a possible expansion of that. We talked about the fact of partnering together to do that, and I would like to commend the mayor and members of the council who have worked with us, as well as especially Mary Beth in the last year, as they have communicated to us the planning meetings and all opportunities. We are not in opposition to this. As I told you a year ago, we would begin the process of looking for property to start an 8th elementary school. We will need that. Going back to what I said last year, we know that we have approved to this date around 3,180 houses. And so we know as those build out on an average of somewhere between 300 and 340 each year, that we will grow that out over the next 5 to 9 years. At that point in time, we will need that expansion. Now, one of the opportunities or one of the options that's available for us would be to expand upon an existing school. But as the council may be aware, we had a recent rezoning, and it's very challenging when all of your elementary schools are east of County Line Road to figure out how to make all the growth on the west side of County Line. As you talk about this property on the back side of Seegers Road, you have Stillwater Cove, Moores Creek Phase 1, 2, Creekside Park that are all zoned and go to Mill Creek. So all that traffic is flowing north and around every day to get to Mill Creek. And then at Hardiman, you have those subdivisions that are many going to Midtown, and they're flowing again west to east. So this property, as we looked on the west side, was very appealing to us. It sits at 17 acres, which equals the property we have for Midtown and the usable property that we currently have for Mill Creek. And so it's plenty size for us to put 900 to 1,000 students in there, and that thoroughfare that comes through Halsey all the way across the Seegers Road is very beneficial to us as a traffic flow. Now in the future, we can look at when that school is built, the rezone, and more of our homes that are on the western side of County Line can go to that school, thereby lessening that traffic that's flowing up County Line and across Mill Road every day from west to east. So we have worked on this. We appreciate it. We do have a contract on the property with the seller. We've got land use and those types of things to take care of, but we feel like this is a good project. It will be beneficial to the school that's going to sit there, and it'll certainly be beneficial to us over the next 5 to 7 years for expansion and flow of traffic through all the schools. So be glad to answer any questions from our side, but we have no opposition to this.
Dr. Nichols.
Yes, ma'am.
Just to refresh your memory, a while back I was on the school board, and not that you could forget, but at that point in time, when we were looking at the growth, we had estimated we would need the current Midtown Elementary School plus one additional elementary school for the build-out of our city. Is that still the estimate, or where are we with that?
Currently, we have a capacity of about 5,735 students in our elementary schools. At the build-out of this current growth that we have, we'll look at about 6,200. And so adding that 900 footprint will help us in the elementary schools. We average about .49 children per house. So if 200 homes in this area would be roughly 100 students, and about .43 of those will be elementary students, .23 will be middle school students, and .34 will be high school. So yes, this will give us that growth, and again, allow us also some breathing room inside our current 7 elementary schools that are not at 100% capacity, but are in the mid-90s, even with the reshuffling with Midtown. So yes, it will absolutely help us to have that buffer and move around, and also get more of our western students from that travel across that we currently have a mass moving every morning. You know, if you're living out there at Stillwater Cove and you're going to Mill Creek, there's really not a good way to get there. And so, and if you're running the buses to do that, that's exciting too. So
Yes, I
this
heard about that.
thoroughfare helps us out as well.
As you know, this is in my district, and when I was walking the neighborhoods, I had several discussions about the fact that those elementary students were going all the way across town.
Well, and let me say this, we still have balances that we like to do across the district. One of the things that's been important for us as a district since the inception of the school district is, as Dr. Fowler would like to say, we do not have and have not schools. We balance those. That keeps every school a great school, and we also want to balance our middle and high schools as we have this growth. So we keep 2 great high schools. You know, we are going to look at expansion at our high schools. You know, people talk about 2 high schools or 3, but I believe that we can expand on each of them to take care of what this growth will be in the future. To build a new high school today is 100 acres at a minimum and $100 million, and that's just not sitting out there. Also, if you look at building a 3rd high school, you still have to do 30 or 40 million of renovation to Bob Jones. It's the oldest of those schools, and to keep it up to par, we need to do some work there as well, and that's in our plan to look at. So we're looking at balancing those 2 high schools with additions, more of a renovation at Bob Jones. They need some renovation there. Our middle schools are going to be in great shape starting in the fall when we have room to breathe in them. You know, we're going to have about 300 starting out from each of Discovery and Liberty going to Journey. That's going to free us up some space inside Discovery, especially that we can start to renovate. That school has been with us a while, and it needs a facelift. And so, you know, it's not just building new schools, but making sure that we work on the schools that we've had. You know, when you build something new, we built Midtown's a beautiful school. It has a beautiful playground. Now we need 6 more playgrounds to equal Midtown. So we have our architect working on a master plan for playgrounds. You know, the playgrounds we had 20 years ago and what we can put in today are different. So not only is this part of our plan of this 8th school to help that, but also it's part of helping us to look at continuing to balance all of our schools.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I know you were on the board. Your picture's in there. I see you right next to it. Still there.
Dr. Nichols, what would you say as part of this, so understanding rezoning and bouncing across the city, right, so that you don't get haves and have-nots. I think one of the things that was mentioned a while back when we passed the property tax was also looking at West Madison from a standpoint of repurposing that for the pre-K program that we have. And I know that's housed within Rainbow as well as Mill Creek, I think, still has a little bit of it. I might be wrong in that. But, you know, for the normal, you know, Joe off the street looking at that going, okay, hey, we want to do this new school area, we want to annex all this in, but yet we were going to do that. Can you kind of give an update on that as to where that's at?
You just went right into this. Last week, the regional director of the Alabama First Class Pre-K came to visit us. We walked them through the West Madison building. We have a letter from them that's okay for us to move forward with the renovations of that building. We can put probably on the upper floor of that somewhere around 20 pre-Ks. We currently have about 12 first-class pre-Ks, so that gives us room to grow at least 8 more in the very near future. We will go into that building. Mr. Nola, our architect, is designing that right now. We will go into that building. It will be completely clean from ceiling to floor, new floors, new cabinetry, everything, and then also a new HVAC system. And that is part of the money that we were able to get out of the $12 million that we have gained. And so that project actually got its okay from the region last week. And I think I actually just shot an email out to everybody about 30 minutes ago, putting that in there. So you're a great time.
Sorry, I hadn't read my email since then. No,
We're excited. Now, it'll be about the fall of '23 before we get into that.
Yeah.
Because we're really going to renovate that building and clean it up and put new flooring, new tile, new lights, new HVAC and everything in there, so.
But if this is approved, essentially, that'll give you some additional runway that maybe pushes this out from a standpoint of having to have
Oh, yes.
whatever funding source is needed or whatever in place for this school. So it gives you some runway, it gives the city time to grow.
Yeah, we're not going to start building this 8th school tomorrow.
Right.
No.
Right.
But, it'll be phased in over the next 4 or 5 years.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
When you were here last year, I believe I asked you a question about our build-out and what you've seen so far from planning in terms of how far we're going to build, how much we're going to build. And so I want to be clear, if we add these 200 additional homes, does that tip the balance in terms of needing a third high school or changing the timing of what you were originally planning? How does that impact what you're already planning?
No, it will not push us out. It will not change. Our build-out that we're looking at would cover this growth. As I said last year when I was here, now that I feel, we have a great communication going on between us all, and that we're able to know what's coming. We'll talk about it. If we have concerns, we let Mary Beth or the mayor know, and we've had discussions in the last year. So no, this fits in those numbers that we had. When we do this build-out, we will have space, an additional space, several hundred. We can't just open the floodgates and just take anything in the future. We'll have to be judicious about what we want to do. We also want to look, Mary Beth and I are looking at the build-out this year to see, COVID was a different year, so there was a change in how many homes we built, so we want to see how that average looks at the conclusion of this calendar year to see, what's on track and what that looks like. But it will not tip us over.
Okay, and then one of the concerns that I have received in emails and messages is that even though there's a strategic advantage in terms of this annexation because it gets you some needed property for a school in the right location, does that mean we're going to need to increase taxes? How are you going to pay for this new elementary school?
Well, as I said last year when I was here, we currently have a half-cent tax that we have. I think it runs out somewhere down the road in 4 or 5 years, and we would probably ask the council to consider extending that out. We still have been blessed in our mill that we got, the 12 mills, and so we've been using that to do the middle school. We're doing the new DD wing at Bob Jones. We did Midtown Elementary, and we also will do about half of the renovations that we want at the high school. The renovation at Bob Jones is going to be a little bit more than was estimated in that to really do Bob Jones the way that we need to. So we will come back and ask the council to look at that to see what options are out there for that in the future. So that's our plan, to come back and have that discussion with you.
Dr. Nichols, you mentioned the DD room. Would you explain to everybody, or wing, would you explain to everybody what that is?
Currently, our system is set up where we only have one high school developmental wing for our special ed students. And so they follow a pattern. And so on the eastern side of town, when they leave Discovery, they would have to go to JC because that's the only place we housed it. So we're coming back and adding a wing at Bob Jones. If you've been by there, you'll see where it's at. And that will be its own special education DD wing to match the one that we have at James Clemens. And now Journey will also have a wing. So all 3 of our middle schools will have that capability. And then when we build an 8th elementary school, that 8th elementary school will have it. So then we have a better flow pattern for our students in special education that more matches students that are not in special education. So we hope to have that ready in the fall. I keep driving by there getting a little worried that I don't see them pouring the concrete yet. But, it's like you were talking about roads earlier. Sometimes there's things under property you don't know. When you build a high school, it was built many years ago. and while we were not a city system, sometimes the pictures that tell you where things are underground are not quite where they are. And sometimes you hit a few things that you thought weren't there, and that can slow you down for a few days. So we've had a few water lines that weren't supposed to be quite where they said they were. So, but we're back on track, they tell me. So we hope to see that starting to come up out of the ground a lot quicker now.
And I have a couple slides at the end talking about funding that talk about several other pots of money that are out there that will continue to get adjusted. So a part of it is a discussion as far as what's needed to accomplish what they need. We also know from a city standpoint, there's requirements also on the west side, and so we've got to work together to make sure that it's supported, but I'll have those in a couple minutes, maybe after everybody speaks.
Okay, great. But what I'm hearing you, just to be clear, is that we're not anticipating any new taxes needed to be able to take care of the growth that you had already planned for.
No, the money we currently have coming, we can budget, and one of the things that we're all fortunate about right now is the bond market. And so we're, now is the time for us to look down the road at what we can do because of the rate that we have right now.
And one other thing, Dr. Nichols, I don't know if this is a question for you or for Mary Beth, but we've also had some people talk to us about infrastructure and roads and how difficult it is to traverse as it is with to James Clemens, and now you're adding this elementary school. What road improvements, what's the benefit of doing this in terms of what you can do for traffic?
Well, first of all, now I live out that way, so I drive every day out that way, okay? So I understand the concern someone might have at the entrance of Hardiman and Halsey. I'm confident in the city to look at that and how we can make that entrance better. But you go back and just watch the traffic flow in the morning from those western sides moving across. You've got a lot of traffic coming back through behind James Clemens. That elementary traffic that is now trying to get to Mill Creek and trying to get to Midtown, that if an elementary school is where we propose it to be, and we zone those neighborhoods into that school, you're going to keep that traffic flowing into that school without it pushing on up into Bird Green and other areas. Now, Journey, we're still going to have traffic going to Journey. We know that. But again, part of that traffic flow that's going to Liberty right now will now go to Journey. And so instead of all of that lined up on County Line in the morning, trying to get to Heritage and James Clemens and Liberty, we're able to look at those zones a little bit and shift some of that traffic in a different direction.
Okay, thank you. That's my questions.
Very good. Thank you so much for coming tonight. Yes, sir.
Thank you much. Thank you all.
Absolutely. Thank you. So we'll open up the public hearing. I think Ms. Laura wanted to speak.
Or at least in first grade. So, my name's Laura Barnard. I actually live in the Ashbury neighborhood, and I just kind of wanted to voice my concerns about traffic over on the west side. So, like Dr. Nichols mentioned, I actually am one of those parents that, about once or twice a week, if we don't make it to the school bus in time, I do head down Hardiman, hang a left. Sometimes I cut through Whitworth Farms, stop at McDonald's, and then, head to Mill Creek. But my real concern is you've got, Greenbrier, you have Whitworth Farms, you have the houses that are off of Powell and those neighborhoods, the ones that are behind James Clemens, Oxford, all of these places, and they're all heading to Hardiman. They're all trying to get to County Line. My husband doesn't take the kids to school as much as I do, but he has to go that way as well just to get over to 565. And by adding another 200 houses, you're just there's he is anyway. You're just adding to the amount of traffic that's using those roads, and those roads are not equipped for another 200 houses. Over the summer, we would walk our dog through the new Wren Homes development that's being built behind Ashbury, and, you look beyond that, and you see the one that's being built behind Oxford, and it's just houses after houses after houses. And, I'm imagining that when that 2012 and 2016 plans were put together, that it did not consider the rapid growth that this community has seen just in the 5 years that we've been here. I mean, it's just exploded, as y'all know. But I really want to, emphasize that infrastructure and roads really should be developed before adding more residential to the west side of town. I just don't think that adding another 200 houses is quite the right direction. In regards to Hardiman itself, when I was growing up, there were 2 students within our class who were killed driving to or from school in the same year on a road very similar to Hardiman. One happened early in the morning on the way to school. The other one happened after school in the evening. Because it was a curvy road, just like Hardiman, there were no lights, just like Hardiman. There's not a lot of signage, just like Hardiman, and there's no curbs. So if you see somebody coming on the other way, and, they have their brights on, which are a lot brighter now, and you curve off, you're just going to fall off the edge, or you're going to hit a tree, or you're going to run over somebody's mailbox. I mean, these are just the things that need to be addressed, in my opinion, before we go and add 200 more houses, he's persistent, to that section of town.
You want me to talk to him? I mean,
But, those are my concerns, and, I could go on about, some of the other things. He's already addressed the schools, and I love the schools, and I love living in Madison. When my husband asked about moving to Alabama, and I found this place, I was like, oh, well, totally moving here. Bring it on, that sounds great. But the schools and the community are part of it, and I feel as though the rapid growth with all the housing is, starting to kind of take away from that. And you see the teacher-to-student ratio, and that just keeps growing. And as a parent, that concerns me, especially with children, who are now in 3rd grade. And it's just something that I think we need to control and we need to really keep a focus on. And, I'd really love to see the infrastructure come in first before we go building, another neighborhood, and then another neighborhood, and then another one. And, there's not even a gas station on the west side of town, and it takes us 30 minutes to go get a gallon of milk from Ashbury to go to Publix and come back because there's so much traffic. So just something to maybe throw out there before we, bring the bulldozers over there and think about building more houses.
thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Next, we have Ms. Jocelyn Brower.
Let's make sure I know how to do this. Good evening, Jocelyn Brower, Taylor's Crossing Subdivision. I'm here to address the Halsey property annex and rezone and with public safety concerns. I have a high school child at James Clemens. I don't have elementary kids anymore, so it's not really, the biggest of concern for me. I am working with a group of citizens to help put infrastructure first in Madison City. I've lived off Hardiman Road for 8 years in 2 different subdivisions, and many of the residents have the same concerns after seeing accident after accident at Hardiman Road and County Line intersections before a light was put in. We have the same concerns now, safety. Let's see. I wanted to go ahead and show this overhead aerial photo. The new subdivision school entrance is right where the type addresses the 90-degree curve there. It's on the southern side of James Clemens High School. Just north of this photo is James Clemens. You can see there is a blind curve here, a 90-degree angle with many high-density subdivisions before and after this curve. This was an old, narrow, country, windy road with elevations and dips, and many other roads in this area are similar. There's actually a couple subdivisions that aren't even showing at this point, but they've already been built. In comparison, this is the side entrance to Bob Jones High School with a much less extreme curve. Pulling out of my driveway from my subdivision, looking left just west of County Line Road behind the Dairy Queen on Hardiman Road, then looking right on the right side here. There's a sign just beyond that that says hidden entrance ahead, and just beyond that, County Line Road. You can see this whole road is curvy and has elevations. Continuing left out of my driveway, there is a large, dense subdivision on the right. Continuing a little further, large dense subdivision on the left side, that's Hardiman Place. Notice one car barely making it out of Hardiman. This is pretty typical. There was an accident involving a school bus in that very same spot. There's a one-way stop on the right leading to James Clemens' back entrance. Here I am pulling out from my old neighborhood, Hardiman Place, a little further down the road. You'll see the stop sign is right past where the red car is. White cars lined up to turn. Just beyond this is the blind corner where Halsey property intersects. Just past this stop sign, I'm approaching the Halsey property. It is straight ahead where the 90-degree curve is located. Note the dip in the road on the right and water accumulation on the side of the road. Typical for this area. We have water issues. You'll see there are homes all along the left side of Hardiman Road. A little further around the blind curve, 2 more subdivisions have been built recently. Park Preserve and St. Andrews luxury apartments shown here, which I just noticed on this drive. This doesn't include the newly rezoned and approved Barnett's Crossing high-density housing with 181 lots yet to be built. And past this, more high-density housing on both sides of the road and more windy, curvy, narrow roads. The new subdivisions do have a turn-in on the right side, not on the middle. Here's the narrow road on Burgreen Road in back of James Clemens High School. This and Hardiman Road should be 3 lanes with center turn lane per the Westside Master Plan. This is the side of Bob Jones High School. There are sidewalks on both sides, a light for crossing. Bob Jones High School also has a curve in the road, but not nearly as bad as Hardiman Road. About a 45-degree angle, not a 90-degree more extreme curve. There's a much better sight line, as you can see here. Continuing around the curve, sidewalks continue on both sides. There's a new subdivision on the left, but the sight lines are pretty good, not as compact as the Halsey property area. This is next to Bob Jones still. An unfortunate accident occurred here involving a young student. This is why we should do everything possible to avoid this from happening and keep our community safe. Hardiman Road in Burgreen is already a dangerous intersection without the addition of more homes, a school, and a thorough road. Please add the infrastructure first. Do not approve the Halsey property until the area has an intersection analysis and cost analysis completed and the money to pay for improvements. Show the taxpayers the facts, numbers, budget, and benefits for bringing more rooftops and more students into Madison City. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Beebe?
I hope when we get to the part that you all have to vote on the annexation, that you would each give your reasons for your votes. And you know, one of my main things is the traffic problem. Now, I don't have any children in school here. I've never had a child in the Madison City schools. Mine all graduated under the county schools. So the schools are very important here. I like them, but just because this property has school property given to the city on it should not be your reason to vote for it. The citizens of this town voted for you in this place. The school board did not put you there. The citizens did. And I think the safety of the citizens should be foremost in your mind. If you don't know what to do about this, maybe we need a safety traffic study done on the city, because I have seen, as you know, I've seen many roads added to this city, many good things. You all mentioned all these wonderful things that are happening here. Madison is a wonderful place to live. I love it, and I hate to see the traffic like this. It's awful. My children won't even come back here to, I mean, they living somewhere else rather than come back here, and it was mainly because of the traffic. They talk about it every time they come. Got a bunch coming Christmas, so I'll be all ears on that. But I think we need a traffic study, and don't let this school property decide on how you're going to vote. On one of the resolutions, the 368 one, which is on the development agreement, I'm going to read quote. This is part of it. It is in the best interest of the city that the city support the project in order to provide additional public education, additional transportation, additional recreational facilities, increased tax revenues for the city, and additional economic activity in the area surrounding the development project. Now, they're talking about additional transportation. That's additional traffic problems. And it's going to catch up with this city. We have the same 4 roads going north and south that they had in the 60s when we moved here. Same road. Granted, they've been widened. But you need to, and these people that live out in this area can talk about that area a lot more than I can. My traffic problem is more inside here. But let's see. I thought just last week, just the last meeting, you all approved 588 apartments. That's going to probably be up to 1,000 cars. And this is 200 lots. That's going to be probably 400 cars. You know, the hospital is over on this side of the city, on the north side. The Kroger and Publix, I don't know them all that are here because I'm stuck on this other side. They still have to come. They have to come through Madison. They have to come through Madison almost to get to Huntsville. The traffic is terrible, and I wish you would, like these people say, do something with the infrastructure and all before you start adding more houses here. As I said, I love Madison, and every couple of years another plus is added to it, and I think I don't drive much at night anymore. Well, I don't drive any at night anymore, but I got down there today, and it was just beautiful downtown, what's been done with the lights and the Christmas. And the Christmas, I think, in Madison is one of the special times when you can see the citizens come together and do things that are so perfect. And it is a good place to live, and I love it. I've raised 3 children here, and I just don't want to see it go to traffic. It's just, you've got to do something about it. And I'd still like to, when you vote, I'll give you an explanation of why you're voting on this annexation. Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Beebe. Does anyone else like to speak during the public hearing? Not, I'll ask the applicant. Jeff, would you like to address any of the concerns?
Thank you for the opportunity to talk for a second. Yeah, I've already been in front of y'all at the work session. We've been working back and forth now for 4 months with the planning department and the mayor's office. I think I have a reputation in Madison of doing upscale communities, and this would be another one of those. The homes will be priced between $400,000 and $1 million, maybe more. The intersection at Hardiman and Halsey currently is an inferior intersection, no question about that. It enters the road at a 7-degree angle. That would all be changed as we build this new connector road. We are volunteering the space for the collector width so that you'll have another connector from Hardiman to Seeger, which actually unloads traffic off of Hardiman. So we think that we actually improve the traffic flow in that area. Councilperson Spears may be able to address that a little bit more directly, but we think that our development actually helps traffic flow and helps safety. It'll be a quality development. We appreciate the planning department's direct and honest negotiations with us during this process. we didn't get very much of what we wanted, but we were treated nice. So we appreciate that. But we look forward to being a part of Madison. My first development in Madison was, a Stave Mill in the 80s. And so I have a long track record with y'all, good relations throughout that whole time period. We look forward to, serving Madison in the future.
Thank you, Jeff. Paul?
You want me to go ahead, or you want to go ahead and get this, okay? Jason? I need this clicker. I think put mine up again. I could have caught it, I promise.
Yes.
I just want to take just a couple of seconds to address a couple of things. So, you know, and now, just so you'll know, this slide was with Samantha. This slide was Samantha let me on my own. So sorry, but I want to take just a minute to recap, kind of going back to what BB just said. I don't get a vote, but if I did, it would be yes. And it would be yes for a couple of reasons. You know, 2016, when we came back into office, we heard loud and clear from the residents. And what they were talking about was one of the things that we did in 2017 with the help of the folks that were on the school board is, you know, right now, the Limestone County tax issue was something that was hanging out there, and everybody needed it, they wanted it solved, or at least some sort of fairness that came into us getting some of that money. But really what they were saying is, please keep our school system at the level that it's been. We don't want anything to hinder that. And so I think one of the first things that we did as a collective group is understand that we had to get our feet up under us to figure out where we were and where we were headed. And so since 2016, we haven't annexed anything over 3 acres. And I put 3-ish because I know there's been something 3.5 or whatever it is, but we have had no large annexations since that time. In 2017, working together with our schools, we set up the Growth Impact Committee to understand what Madison already had in the hopper and what we could expect. Along that same time, the schools working and negotiated, and the Limestone County tax issue was put to bed with us benefiting, and in some instances 5 years down the road, and we could get into more of that later. But so we've worked a plan, and we stood up the Growth Impact Committee and learned what the schools were going to do, or the size of the city was going to be, and then we worked with the schools in 2018 to define the infrastructure projects that were needed, and we developed the city's growth policy. So working with the schools, we understood what they would need if we grew at a certain pace, and we committed to that, and we put a growth policy in place to support that. In 2019, based on everything we put together, we asked this city, would you agree that this is a good plan and back it with increasing your taxes to accomplish that? And with a 70% vote, they did. And in turn, we continue in 2020, we started building those schools, and we started supporting that infrastructure. You know, one of the things that I am really proud of with this group is working with the schools, because the new middle school will have better ingress, egress to get in and out of that school. And a lot of it, and I commend at that, in our past city engineer, Gary Chenoweth, because he recognized exactly what Dr. Nichols just said. If you're trying to get to that middle school, you're going to come out of that western portion of town, you're going to come down probably Seegers, get on the 5-lane that is now Old Highway 20, come down to Madison Boulevard, and then you're going to come to Sullivan and come back that way. So we've added infrastructure that we're in process of building right now to support the middle school, and then of course we did the same thing in the elementary school. So in 2021, it's the first time that we're looking to annex anything back from Limestone County and it meets the strategic plans that the schools, the city of Madison, and one thing we haven't talked about is Madison Utilities. They were going to, and they still will, need to put a line through that property, that Halsey property, regardless of whether the city did anything or not, to take care of our citizens. And so that is also something that's covered in this. So please, that's just simply a recap of kind of the lineage of this has not just happened. This has been planned for. Now, a couple of things that I want to go along with this is those boxes right there that I'm getting ready to pull up in a minute and talk individually are developments that are going to happen whether Madison wants them to or not. You know, it used to be in the city in Limestone County, and Donnie Spencer flat out said this a year ago, people are getting to the point where housing is in such need that they need a house. Doesn't matter if it's in Madison or not. And that land out there is wide open, and they're going to build houses, whether in apartment complexes. Well, that's come to fruition. So let's talk about a couple of them. So one of the things that is in process right now is at the corner of Huntsville, Browns Ferry, and Bergreen at Big Star is unfortunately in the county, someone who's on one of our committees in the city who owns that property and is not talking to the city, but they're looking to possibly put anywhere up to 500 apartment complex units right there, so units. That's going to happen probably whether we want it to or not. In addition to that, the Balch and Gillespie intersection, right now where we added the roundabout, you can see the white right there that's right behind the Shell station. All of that is in the county. Unfortunately for us, someone has come in with a plan to put 252 apartment units right there. We've been working with our county commissioner, Steve Haraway, to do any and everything we possibly could to not have that happen. But they have rights as landowners, and unfortunately that is in the county. Steve has done an incredible job of working with them to bring those units down, but we won't control that. And they don't want to come into Madison, because they don't want to build it in Madison. They've worked with Mary Beth and and so we don't really have control over that, guys. One other one that's there is on Hardiman, right next to the subdivision that Jocelyn was talking about, maybe in her backyard, I don't know, is unincorporated property that we have an opportunity. Now, these guys are possibly talking to us, and council will have a decision on whether it makes sense or not, but they're going to build there probably regardless of whether we want them to. So I go down to this last one. This is something that has been, as you've heard from Mary Beth, has been looked at from the Westside Master Plan. We've talked with the schools to find a great location. We found a way to put another east-west connector in there that we can do safely and correctly. And as Jeff said, he probably don't want to do it the way we want him to do it, but he's going to, because it's going to be a safe collector road. And then again, we've seen the success that a roundabout has. We have the ability, if a roundabout makes sense there instead of a traffic light, to make it safer on getting traffic through there. So there's a lot of positives to annexation here, but it is one of the ones that they have given us the opportunity to make a decision on and control. Now, one last thing I want to talk about, because one of the key pieces here is that we are not going to ask for any more money from our citizens. What we are going to do is take some of these pots of money that have grown dramatically and figure out the best way to find the mix with our schools to keep our schools at the highest level that our community expects, while also taking care of a lot of the infrastructure that you guys are talking about. Some of these pots, the half-cent sales tax that basically was put in place for James Clemens, when it was put in place, was generating somewhere in the neighborhood of $2.5 to $3 million a year. It's now generating somewhere in the neighborhood of $4.5 to $5 million a year. That's great for all of us because it's grown dramatically. In addition to that, Madison County property taxes continue to go up, and the schools get a large portion. I say large, that's not fair. A portion of that money. One of the great things, an example would be when you hear Facebook bringing the buildings that they're building here, those are monster server farms that are property tax. So as the abatements go away for that, we in Madison will see higher property taxes for our schools, and we don't know what those are yet. The Limestone County property and sales taxes that were negotiated in 2017, some of them had a 5-year moratorium as far as abasement. We'll start seeing increases in those as the property out in Limestone County has increased dramatically. And then lastly, Senator Butler is working with several of the legislative officials in the Madison County TVA in lieu of tax distribution that we've been getting the same amount since 1980 is getting ready to be redistributed based on population of today, not 1980. So those are all areas where our tax revenues are going to come up. And we're going to have more. We don't know what those are yet, so we're working and given the opportunity. We're going to work with the schools regardless of whether this passes or not. But in working with the schools, we're going to figure out the right distribution. We need a fire station in Limestone County. We're going to figure out how to do that. We're going to continue to improve the roads as we can. So this is one, if you go back to follow through what BB said, I don't get a vote, but this would be my vote, and it's because I think we've done a great job. And I can tell you just as a mayor, I can't be any more proud of where we are right now when it comes to managing this. Guys, 20 years ago, I mean, it's hard to make a plan for 5 years. 20 years ago, if you were sitting on this dais, you had 29,000 people in this city. Now we've got 57,000. We're going to grow whether we want to or not. This one we can control. Ms. Beebe talks about when she was here and how traffic was. I can tell you the road that we're talking about and that turn that we're talking about, I rode my bike about every day on that road till about the mid-2000s, and then I said, oh, hell no, I'm not doing that anymore. because it got where traffic was becoming more and more busy. So we're going to continue to grow. This is a great way for it to happen in a planned way, and I want our citizens to know that as a mayor, council, and a school board and superintendent, we're going to take the money you've given us and continue to stretch it as far as we can to do the best job we can managing what's already happening. So thanks for giving me a couple minutes to at least tell you what you'd ask for as far as why it would be that way. Only if I can throw it because it's more fun. No, here you go. I know. I won't do that.
You couldn't have caught it either.
If I may, I wanted to just address a couple of the comments that were made by the public. Let me get to the right graphic. So one of the comments that was made, and this was when they were showing the pictures of like driving through the streets, and there was a number of mentions of being high-density projects around. And I'm pulling up this graphic to show you that none of the development in the vicinity of where we're talking is classified as high density for the city of Madison. So the numbers that are on here, and if we look specifically just along Hardiman Road of this stretch, Hardiman Place is the most dense at 2.7 units per acre. That is not considered a high density project in any way. So I just wanted to correct that. I know it may seem, it's not a big field with just a barn or, 1 acre lots, but there is no high-density housing. And even the Barnett's Crossing project that was mentioned as a high-density project, it does have a component of R3 zoning, which is where the age-restricted villas are. But again, these are age-restricted villas that aren't going to generate a whole lot of traffic. So even though it is an R3 zoning, which is a higher density zoning, it's not a product type that one thinks about with a high density. So I just wanted to correct that for the record, that really the area is predominantly low density with some medium density around it. One of the other things I wanted to respond to was just the amount of traffic that's on the roads. Gary, when he was still here and fairly recently, and he did that at Planning Commission quite a bit, would have to speak to traffic volumes on Hardiman Road specifically. Hardiman Road is well below, its design capacity. So yes, there has been an increase in traffic on Hardiman Road, and experiencing that increase can be frustrating as a motorist. It can be worrisome, right, as a motorist, but it is still well below its design capacity. And I wanted to reiterate that when we, and Ms. Beebe spoke to this too, about a traffic study, when we updated the city's transportation plan in 2018, we looked at build out of this area. We assumed an elementary school. The fact that this project includes that east-west connector has been mentioned by me and by the mayor, is a very good thing, and even Dr. Nichols mentioned it, because it's going to help to distribute that traffic off of Hardiman Road, right? So if you're trying to get from County Line Road to Seegers Road in that area, you don't have to take that curve once this road goes in. You can, drive through straight. And so one of the things that, one of the reasons why transportation networks have parallel routes, right? You've got multiple north-south routes, you've got multiple east-west routes, is so that you're distributing traffic flow. So it's not all loaded onto one collector road or one arterial. And this project will help us to achieve that. And as I mentioned, it's consistent with our transportation plan. And even the 2012 growth plan called for the extension of Halsey Drive to be that east-west connector. So I just wanted to mention those points in response to some of the public comment, and again, happy to answer any questions that you may have. Thank you.
With that, I'd like to close the public hearing, and we'll ask for a motion.
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
Motion and second. Start the discussion.
I do have concerns, just as everyone else, about the traffic. So what exactly is going to be done as far as when Halsey comes in? It's going to be a straight road. Is it going to come off of the corner? Is it going to be turned into a corner? Is there going to be a light there? What is going to be done to mitigate the traffic that will be coming in here?
Understand the question. So when we're, and I will answer it, but I wanted to take a step back. So big picture, when we're looking at zoning, which is what is before you right now, we don't get into a detailed engineering analysis typically.
But is it not a safety issue,
No, I'm
zoning?
gonna
Okay.
get there.
Okay.
So, but I just wanted to let you know that we wouldn't typically dive in and do a detailed traffic study at this stage for something like this when we have master plans that call for that connector road to be in place. What we will be doing, and Mr. Enfinger mentioned this, is we are planning on looking at modifying that intersection where Halsey Drive connects with Hardiman. The Westside Master Plan did identify the possibility of a traffic signal there. We will take a look at that to see if the traffic signal is the best control. Now that we have some sense of what all might happen there, should this be approved, right? At 200 single-family homes, it could have been, 300 other units. So now that we have a sense of what could happen there, we know about the development that has occurred elsewhere in that vicinity, we will zero in to figure out exactly what that traffic control will be. Will it be a roundabout? Will it be a lighted intersection, not necessarily a traffic signal, but some kind of controlled intersection? One of the things that Mr. Enfinger has asked is that we consider adjusting that entrance a little bit further south so it's not where it is. So one of the things that the developer will be doing is paying for the design and the engineering analysis for that connection. And they would do that as part of the project if it moves forward. So I guess I will assure you that we're going to make sure that it's a safe situation, and we certainly don't want anybody to be in harm's way. There will be analysis that will go with that our engineering department will take a look at.
Okay. Because right now, we are you're asking me to approve a zoning, and I still have lots of safety concerns.
So
that's
right.
where I'm trying to come around and see where we're at. And the same on the other side with Seeger, because it is that blind hill as we come out on the other side. And what's going to be done to mitigate the danger there?
So again, as part of our analysis, when we look at those connections, whether or not we need to install I'll call it a warning light, like if you're going over a hill, and there's a flashing light that tells you if oncoming traffic is coming. In fact, we're looking at one of those, I think it's on Balch Road. We've been trying to coordinate with the county on that. And so there's, analysis that goes in. I mean, engineers don't do things sort of in a slapdash fashion. They're very methodical. And so we will take the time to, get it right.
An example of that light is at the end of Pension Row into Palmer, where
Yes.
it warns of oncoming traffic.
Correct.
So very similar situation.
Right. So there are traffic control devices, that can be used. There's a lot of much hillier development that is in other jurisdictions and that type of thing. I think the overall concept of what is being proposed doesn't give us concern. We understand it's a change. We understand that, we have to figure out those specific traffic control devices, but that again is something that would come. When we're looking at zoning, big picture, we're wanting to make sure that we've got a compatible project with the surrounding area. If this was a much denser project, it might be something where we say, wait a second, we'd rather make that study up front. But because this is a relatively low density project, we didn't feel that was warranted.
Okay.
It was mentioned that it was not well lit along Hardiman. Wanted to ask on the connector road if the Huntsville Utilities can come in and help light that area up from County Line through the new connection.
That's certainly a pet peeve of mine that our collector roads are not lit, and it was just not something that was normally done from a cost perspective. So I am a huge fan of getting streetlights where we can. I think it's also helpful not only from a safety standpoint, but getting people out and going to restaurants and shopping and, it achieves a lot. So it's certainly something we can follow up on.
Very good, thank you.
Did we not approve the new lighting? And as we annexed in property, were they not going to add lighting along the way? Or am I misremembering that?
I don't recall that
Don't remember
specific
that.
action.
So they're only going to be changing the existing lights?
Correct.
So anything new, we're on our own, is that
Yeah,
correct?
that's my understanding.
Okay.
So I've got a question about the zoning specifically.
Yes.
Two questions. Can we go back to your slide of where it shows the overall, please?
I lost my PowerPoint.
I think it was a slide of where it's, the old and the new, if you will.
The old and the new for the zoning?
Is where, the Westside master plan was and what we have.
Yes, right there. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So those two, the P and A, that, it looks like we're giving up a little bit of the P and A for the,
That's correct, for the
basically
school.
for the school.
Yes.
But we're still developing the same number of homes that we thought we would develop according to the plan then, is that correct?
Yes, so the Westside master plan, we didn't get into, I'll say, specific parcel analysis per se, although obviously from the drawing, that assumed a certain amount of density. And in fact, the Westside master plan, both the mixed residential and the mixed residential conservation, call for anywhere from 5 to 18 units per acre. This project is about 2 units per acre. So it's far less dense than what the Westside master plan was contemplating. Then, when we went forward to doing the transportation analysis a couple of years later, we did a little deeper dive in terms of our growth projections, and this project would be consistent with that area.
Okay. And I guess the other question I have is, what would this property look like if it weren't annexed and, we're getting zero tax dollars at all, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if that were developed outside of the city of Madison into the county, we're getting zero tax dollars and we still carry the burden of the roads, we still carry the burden of police and fire, is that correct?
That's, well, police and fire could be debated, but certainly the impact on the roads would occur, and, and all other services. Those residents are still going to use the Madison Library, presumably. They're still going to, they're also going to benefit the city by shopping in the city's stores and patronizing restaurants. So there is benefit. In terms of what that density of that project would be or how that might, I can't answer that, but Mr. Enfinger perhaps could address that. But yes, there would be impacts, and there wouldn't be revenue benefit. If it comes into the city, obviously those students that live there can go to Madison City Schools. That's the primary change.
But we get the sales tax dollars from the building portion of it.
Yes.
And because I know, I've been on finance committee now for 4 years, 5 years, whatever it is, and one of our top, income producers, if you will, is building material, either from inside the city or outside the city.
Yes.
So if we're not getting those taxes, then basically we're just not generating that income, and we still have the same issue. So we either get the issue with income or we get it without income. Is that fair or no?
I think that's fair, and I think, we'll talk a little bit about this with the annexation. Because this is really about zoning
Yeah, I
right
just want to
now.
talk about
But
the
I
zoning
think
portion.
that, for staff, it wouldn't be enough just because we got building sales tax revenue to support a project or support annexation of a project. Sure, that revenue is helpful to all parties, but when you look long-term, right, that's one-time revenue that you get for building sales tax. So long-term, how is, this project going to benefit the community? And that revenue is helpful, but it's one time. So I would never use that as a reason to support an annexation, certainly of any size, frankly. It's just not a factor in our analysis.
Because there's more to it than just...
There's a lot more to it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just one more thing on safety, and I said a lot, but the fire station. And Mary Beth was wonderful. She spent a long time. We went over a lot of these things, and I do appreciate your time. But again, Mayor throws out but everybody just throws out, yeah, we're gonna do the fire station, yeah, we're gonna do a fire station. How are we ever going to do that if we don't just say, hey, we have to do it because the school is coming, or something like that?
So as we talked about, there is a property nearby that we are hoping we will get a fire station at. That landowner is moving at a slow pace in terms of, putting together their plan. The city council could always choose to fund acquisition of a portion of that site for the fire station, rather than waiting for, me to try and negotiate that land or someone. And that would be fine. I'm sure, staff, we'd be happy to try and negotiate an acquisition of some of that property. Whether or not the landowner is willing to do that right now, I don't know, just because they may want to have the ultimate flexibility, right, in how their master plan comes together. But we do have a property that we think is great. The fire chief has indicated it would satisfy their response times. And, we'd love to go and get it. We just need a property owner to be ready for that. Or you guys to allocate funds, and we can try and negotiate that acquisition.
Mary Beth, sorry.
Go ahead.
As you know, this is in my district. And, but right now, we're just voting on the zoning. I have some comments, but they're more appropriate for annexation. So at that point, I will make the comments. But this will not be in effect if the future annexation vote does not take.
That's correct.
Later on tonight. So as far as zoning only is concerned, this is very much in keeping with the Westside Master Plan. It fulfills many of the strategic goals of that area according to the Westside Master Plan. And so at this point, I would be ready for a vote on the zoning.
I do have just one other concern, and that is the east-west. And in the proposal that we saw in October, it was a 4-lane, and now I understand it's only going to be a 2-lane going through there, with the possibility to expand.
It was never going to be a 4-lane. We talked about 2-lane and 3-lane. And there, I don't think it was talked about as being a 4-lane.
With a center
Talked
divider?
about, well, I guess at one iteration, there was a center landscape median, but even with that landscape median, it was just 1 lane of travel in each direction. So it was always a 3-lane, but, so one concept was, and the one you're referring to, is you had 2 travel lanes, 1 on each side, and a center landscape median. So now, what we're talking about is having 1 travel lane in each direction, and then ultimately you'd have a center turn lane. However, what the developer is proposing to construct is the 2 travel lanes with turn pockets and dedicate land for the full improvement if we were to add a full center turn lane. So and again, we'll talk a little bit about this a little bit later this evening, but at a minimum, it would be 2 travel lanes, 1 in each direction, with turn pockets to accommodate school traffic turning and residents turning and so forth.
And part of the beauty of that, also that discussion and listening to part of why the adjustments were made was the school's understanding when it comes to an elementary school, they need to have some serious stacking inside of the school itself, a la what's happening at Midtown. So that's part of how some of the adjustments were made, was Dr. Nichols and team saying, hey, this is kind of what we really need to maybe put some parking over here and keep a long thing to get everybody off those roads, because that's beneficial now in the city of Madison, so.
Right, I see it becoming like another Eastview, where people use it to cut across from, 2 different places. I know it's not going to be complete because it doesn't run the whole length. So it wouldn't go all the way, but I can also see it as being a real convenient cut through, so you don't have to make that sharp turn and stuff. So how much traffic will be going down that road? And do we need to plan ahead and not make it 4-lane now, and so we're not 15 years from now going, oh my gosh, they got it wrong?
So that is something that we talked a little bit about at the work session. Councilmember Powell brought that up. And so when if we get past, this step and if there's an approved project and the developer starts moving into actual design, then we'll work on that and figure out what makes the most sense from an efficiency standpoint. We have a sense of when the school district will come online, right? 2025, 2026. So does it make sense to try and do more improvements now or wait and phase those in? So we would evaluate that.
Yeah, I guess it comes back to I'm still voting tonight,
Understand.
so,
Can we vote on the zoning portion of it now and vote and take the comments of the other later?
Yeah, absolutely. Ready to move forward on the zoning part? All right. Can I get the vote, please?
Councilmember Powell?
Aye.
Councilmember Spears?
Aye.
Council President Shaw?
Aye.
Councilmember Robleski?
Aye.
Councilmember Bartlett?
Aye.
Councilmember Denzine?
Aye.
Councilmember Seifert?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mary Beth. And we're moving into department reports, and engineering is up first with a couple of items.
I have two items for your consideration tonight. The first item is resolution number 2021-372R, and it's requesting award for the bid of two intersection projects to Shoal Electric in the amount of $750,000. One is for production at Madison Boulevard, where we're planning to install a new signal, and the other is Intergraph at Madison Boulevard, where we're replacing the existing signal.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Can I get the vote, please?
Councilmember Seifert?
Aye.
Councilmember Bartlett?
Aye.
Council President Shaw?
Aye.
Councilmember Robleski?
Aye.
Councilmember Spears?
Aye.
Councilmember Powell? Councilmember Denzine?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Item number two I have is resolution number 2021-373R, requesting awarding bid for the rewiring of the traffic signal on County Line Road to Shoals Electric in the amount of $170,000. And it's for the Hardiman Mill intersections. They're currently working independently, and we're trying to get them to work together out of one cabinet.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Do you know when they'll start on that if we approve this tonight?
No, but once we get everything signed and back, I can set up a construction meeting, and then we'll get a notice to proceed out to them whenever they are ready to start.
And then will that be a long process for them to coordinate those lights, or?
Generally, it just depends on their workload, because it depends on which one they do first, if they either start in production or this one, but they've also got some others that are also in the queue that we've awarded previously, so it just kind of depends.
All right. Is there any other discussion? Not, can I get the vote, please?
Councilmember Seifert?
Aye.
Councilmember Spears?
Aye.
Council President Shaw?
Aye.
Councilmember Robleski?
Aye.
Councilmember Powell? Councilmember Bartlett?
Aye.
Councilmember Denzine?
Aye.
And motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Police.
Again. So we're here before you to talk about our body cameras and the addition of dash cameras for our police cars. We are coming up on the end of our life cycle on our current body cameras, and as it stands right now, we're getting into some problematic issues with data storage because we have to store that stuff on site. So we commissioned a couple of different companies to test, and we put them through a pretty rigorous test period and determined at the end that our best bet is to go with the Axon body cameras that will also provide dash cams for our cars. There's a couple of reasons why we wanted to go with the dash cams as well. First off, we're losing a lot of cases in traffic court because we're at the point now in our country where it's no longer, where it's all show me, don't tell me. And if you don't see it, it didn't happen. So the testimony of police officers, unfortunately, isn't held in as much esteem as it used to be. So A lot of that is because a lot of the traffic incidents that we have and DUIs aren't being captured on the dash cams for the initial reason for the stop, even though everything else is captured on the current body cameras. So the dash cams that we'll be getting, should you vote for that, will also have an interior dash cam so that we can look at the interior compartment of the police car. Why is that important? Well, with the body cameras and the cameras inside the cars, we will have a complete view of when someone is taken into initial custody all the way to when they're put to the police car, all the way to the point where they're delivered to one of the jails, where the interior camera from the jail will pick up from there. So we'll have complete accountability of everybody that's in custody. Now, that's important also because of the fact that you read headlines almost daily about somebody dying in police custody, and there's no explanation as to what happens. Well, we know with the prevalence out there with heroin and fentanyl right now, an officer can make a quick arrest on somebody, pat them down and miss a small little packet of fentanyl that they may have hidden on them that they know may get found when they go to the jail, and they end up ingesting that fentanyl when they're sitting in the back of the police car, and by the time we get to the jail, we have a dead or unresponsive person in the back of the car. Well, these interior cameras now will capture that event, so it'll provide some type of explanation as to what's going on. The proactive measure of having the interior car cameras as well will bring down our insurance rates with the state. All right. So the new body cameras will give us features that we don't currently have now. There is an excellent redaction feature that Axon offers so that we can redact witnesses, victims, things like that. We can redact our faces. It gives us an administrative tool that we currently don't have as well to hold our own officers accountable, in that our supervisors can now look at what's known as activation rates to see which officers are using the cameras as they're instructed and as per policy, and those which are only using them selectively. We don't currently have that capability right now. Now, in looking at this, our nearest competitor, Axon, came in a little bit lower on the bid, but it doesn't, again, give us all of the options that we have with Axon. And there's one big thing that we have with Axon that the other companies don't give us, and that's 2 technology refreshes during the 5-year period for the contract, which we're signing. As it stands right now, the contract period is going to allow us to pay interest-free loans at a rate of about $280,000 a year for 5 years until we've paid for the whole system. And that will give us not only the body cams, dash cams, but more importantly, the storage, which is where the real expense is. And that'll be cloud storage instead of on-site storage that we have now. And we'll have unlimited cloud storage for all of that material. The administrative feature also allows us to a function with Axon called evidence.com, to where we can share our footage with the prosecutor's office, with the other surrounding jurisdictions that have Axon as well. They'll go to the same evidence.com feature and be able to pull up our footage for future prosecutions. One important feature that we did add that did add a little bit to the expense is something called signal sidearms, which is a Bluetooth signal that fits in the holster of every officer's firearm. So if the officer immediately encounters somebody in a deadly force situation or potential deadly force situation, the officer doesn't have to worry about the distraction of hitting his body camera first before trying to protect his or her life. The minute they pull the weapon out of the holster, it will automatically activate the camera. And at the same time, there is a proximity feature on it that once one camera is activated, all the other cameras in the 30-yard area will activate as well. So this is the reason why we went with Axon.
Move to approve?
Second.
Motion is second. Is there any discussion?
Now, just from the ride-alongs that I've done, it is very, very necessary. All the officers were, they couldn't use what was there for whatever reason, and you had to, just to depend on the body cam wasn't the best. So, totally support this, sir.
Thank you.
This may be way out there, and I guess that's usually my area, but I'm just curious. I always get nervous when I hear cloud storage, because that means somebody else is responsible for it and storing it. Have we passed this through, Jason, and from the standpoint of cybersecurity and all that? Because there's a lot of people that want to take data and hold it ransom.
Yes, our IT has looked at it. I don't know. Jason?
Sorry, maybe that's just way out there, but that could cost a lot of money.
Yeah, good question.
No, it is a great question. Luckily, Axon Taser is one of the absolute industry leaders on this, and, you know, we've talked before about reliability, and they do have the 5 nines of reliability, which we've talked about on several other applications, and the certifications they go through to have their stuff in a position of security. Obviously, with public safety, it's one of the things that they've keyed in on. So we feel confident with them from a cybersecurity point of view. But, you know, we've got to be right every time, and the bad guy has to be right once. Over the weekend, a global exploit was actually published where everybody's is circling the wagons, and we've checked in with these vendors who's covered and who's not. Axon Taser was somebody who was already covered.
Okay.
It was an exploit that came out, was announced on the 9th, and they're already in good shape. So we can't guarantee against everything, but we feel confident with them as a solution from here on.
Okay, thank you.
And in talking to the judge and our prosecutor, they're both fully supportive of this for 2 reasons. One, obviously, they want to be in a position to support our police department in every possible way they can as they work to keep us safe. Along those same lines, they want to support our citizens because in many instances, they need more information. We're information-driven, not just how it feels. It's, hey, show me the data. And this is one more way to be able to give them that, to be a better resolution for situations that there's sometimes many opinions on. The other part of that is it's a 5-year interest-free purchase, of which we pay, $280,000 a year. Comes out of our capital number. It's about $1 million a year that we have to spend on our equipment and the capital pieces that are required, and we can figure out a way to make that work. So.
Hey, Chief, does this help us with our ALEA certification as well?
Absolutely, yes, sir.
Very good. Can I get the vote, please?
Councilmember Robleski?
Aye.
Councilmember Bartlett?
Aye.
Did you not second?
I second.
It was her.
Councilmember Denzine?
Aye.
Council President Shaw?
Aye.
Councilmember Spears?
Aye.
Councilmember Powell?
Aye.
Councilmember Seifert?
Aye.
Motion passes. Thanks so much, Chief. Mary Beth, you back up.
Where you been?
Hadn't seen you in a while.
You too.
A touch of sarcasm.
That came from the heart.
Why is it always me?
Yeah, it did.
Can't imagine.
I love that remark.
You know Santa heard that.
That New Yorker in me. All right.
Santa heard that.
All right. Next up for you all is Resolution 2021-368-R, and this is requesting approval of a development agreement for the Halsey projects that we were talking about. I'm going to zip past a few of these slides and talk a little bit about the development agreement. So what this development agreement does is a number of things. It, identifies the total number of units allowed. As I mentioned, their development plan includes 201 units. We're recommending a 205 unit max in there. It provides a little bit of flexibility. What we've seen over the years is there will be some shifts in the location of lots because of a wetland delineation or whatever. It may open up a new opportunity for an additional lot. Certainly the council could just keep it at the 201, but the developer is asking for the 205 margin, and we're okay with that. The second bullet there is the phasing of the project. The project could start in 2022, and that would really just be starting to, do all the grading and that type of thing. I don't imagine we'd see a single unit completed in 2022 based on the way things go, but regardless, their first phase would be for 95 units. That works out to be about 31 units per year, which is about similar to what we've been seeing. And then their second phase starting in 2025. We don't have any kind of catch-up provision in there. That's something that some of you have mentioned. It sets aside the 17 acres for the elementary school that we've talked about. The district has, as Dr. Nichols mentioned, they have a contract for that site. I don't know when they expect that all to be finalized. We would expect the school would come online in 2025, 2026.
The development agreement addresses the open space. As I mentioned, there's about 24 acres, which is about 24% of the site. So it talks about walking paths, a multi-use path along the creek that would be provided. The district has also asked for about 1 acre of that open space to be potentially used by them for stormwater retention, and we're all in agreement for that. One of the things that the Westside Master Plan has talked about is, again, protecting tree canopy in the parks and natural area. The Planning Commission has really been very passionate about that component. And so we've crafted some pretty detailed language with respect to tree canopy that we applied to the Bella Woods project. You all acted on that development agreement as well. So we've basically taken the Bella Woods tree protection language, carried it over to this project. We've tightened it up a little bit based upon our Bella Woods experience, but that's in there. We also have language that addresses should the council ever adopt an impact fee while building permits are still being issued, of course, then the project would be subject to that. And then last component of this development agreement is that east-west connector road that we've talked about. It talks about extending that road from the, from Hardiman Road over to Maciel. What this graphic shows you is the blue portion there right off of Hardiman is existing city right-of-way. And so under that development agreement, the city would improve that portion that is our right-of-way currently. The red represents the new road that would be constructed by the developer, paid for by the developer, with the school participating in the half the cost for the road that's along its frontage. That works out to be about 15% of the cost of the road, which my understanding is the district has stipulated to that. The portion from the red over to Seegers Road that represents Maciel would be a future component. It's not part of this development agreement because it's not needed to serve this project, but it is something that the city would do to serve the school. And so the white and blue hashed area is existing right-of-way that we'll end up approving. That yellow rectangle there, sliver, is additional right-of-way that would be required. And so what we would look to do is do that yellow and the white and blue area before the school came online in 2025, 2026. Now, obviously, we'll be working closely with the school district, so if they shift that where the district's, the school wouldn't open until 2027 to 2028, that gives us more time yet to do those improvements. So the development agreement does lock in the developer's commitment to build the red portion, pay for all of the design, the construction management, the engineering, and so forth. So in summary, very importantly, the DA secures the needed elementary school site. It addresses our transportation infrastructure needs with that connector road that's consistent with the master plans that we talked about previously. It is going to help to distribute traffic in the area, as we talked about under our zoning discussion. It provides for open space recreational improvements that will be open to the public. Obviously, the clubhouse that would be private for the HOA, but the walking paths will be open to the public. It addresses the protection of trees. It phases the project, and we are recommending approval. Planning Commission does not review development agreements, so they do not weigh in on this aspect of the project, but staff is supporting this, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
I spoke with a representative of Madison Utilities just this afternoon, and while it's not part of this development agreement, there is a certain right-of-way that the utilities are trying to obtain in order to facilitate some sewer connections.
The trunk line that they need to put in, yes.
So it is my understanding from this representative of Madison Utilities that that agreement has been coordinated with the developer, and they have come to this agreement as of today, and they are in support of this.
Yes, thank you for that. That is something that Mr. Enfinger has been working with Madison Utilities on, that the prior property owner was not really willing to do, so that's very significant from a wet utilities infrastructure component.
Can we get a motion?
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion and second. Is there any other discussion?
I'd like to comment on this. I know Ms. Beebe wanted to know, if how we were gonna vote or why or whatever, and of course, I can tell you my vote is gonna be yes. And the reason is, quite honestly, you know, going back to the history that we talked about of how we made a plan, and now we've planned our work, now we have to work our plan. I mean, that's the biggest part of it. And plans, they change. They're gonna move from this, I think that's probably about a mile or so from where the school was gonna be. And the most important piece to me is something I talked about, the last 4 years of, and I was concerned about it, and I'm still concerned about it, and I described it as being in a boat, right? And you got developers, and you got the school, and you got the city, and now, including the utilities. And we get in this boat, and all of us are trying to paddle a different direction, and we're just going around and around and around. And it didn't make sense. So this is an opportunity to talk about strategic growth. And not to get into who ran on what or whatever, but there was nobody that ever ran on no growth. We ran on strategic growth, to plan this. And, what a great plan. We have an opportunity for the schools to work with the city and the schools to work with the developer, and also now we've got the infrastructure piece as far as the water. And that's why I'm for this.
Mhm.
That's all I've got.
I'll piggyback on that and say that my district is very unique from the other 6 districts in that it's 98% residential. I've got the gas station at the roundabout, used to say the four-way stop, and the new pre-K at West Madison. Other than that, all I have is residential. More often than not, there is not a home for sale in my entire district. I mean, from Park Meadow all the way up to the apartments, over to Balch, thousands of houses, not one for sale. We have a housing shortage in Madison. We have people that want to move here for our schools, for the businesses that they're coming to work for, and we need to provide quality homes for them. We're going to continue to grow, and I know there's some people that have the mentality of, I'm here, my kids are in school, bar the gate, Katie. I know that's kind of an old term, but, lock it all down, and that's just not feasible, and that's not what we want. I believe this is a quality product that brings in 4 different types of homes that's going to support our community and support our growth, and that's my rationalization for this project.
I do want to mention that your vote, what's before you right now is the DA. We'll get to the annexation step by step.
I know.
And I appreciate those comments, but I do want to mention that your action is just on the DA, and the big finale, the big finish is still out there. In terms of the DA, I didn't mention this because I think given the pacing of what the developer thinks, it probably will be immaterial. But most of our development agreements have a 10-year term, and this also has a 10-year term. And so, let's just say, the economy fell out and, the developer, decided it couldn't move forward for whatever reason. The development agreement still is out there for 10 years. And so I did want to make mention of that. We haven't really seen that happen. All the projects have been going slower, in part because of wet weather we had a couple of years ago, and in part because of COVID, and, and they're certainly motivated because of the housing shortage and the demand, which commands higher prices, so they're motivated.
Yeah. I like the fact on this development agreement, it clearly outlines expectations on both sides, what the developer can expect of us, what we can expect of the developer. I like the fact that you put in there the rollover provisions. I can't remember what it was called.
The catch-up provisions.
Yeah, catch-up provisions, whereas previous agreements we had, if you were supposed to do 25 this year and you only did 10, and next year you're supposed to do another 25, well, then that delta, that 15, gets added to the next year. So, you basically got this big bow wave that could be created, and then all of a sudden you end up with 75 homes in a year, and you're going, oh my gosh, what happened? And then you got to go back and trace that back. So really with this rollover or catch-up provision out of there, it essentially extends the lifetime, right, up until the 10 years of the development that you still have. You're still bound by that year's development amount that you've been approved or allotment. So I like that. Yeah, I like it. At the same time, like I said, it just clearly puts out there what the expectations are that we can hold each other accountable to, so.
Is it a time to talk about how much it's going to cost us to put in the roads and where we are responsible for the roads?
Sure. We had talked a little bit about this at the work session. The developer, because we asked that question of the developer, so they took a look at some of their recent projects, road construction projects they've done, and provided some calculations for us. Then I took a look at some of our projects just to kind of, say, okay, does that sound about right? What we are estimating, again, it's just an estimate, is that the developer's portion of the road, and again, for what we've discussed in terms of that level of improvement, would be a little bit under $2.8 million. The school district portion for the frontage in front of the school district and then picking up that half of that cost would be about $490,000. The city improvement to the existing Halsey right-of-way, guesstimating here at about $580,000, and that's a very conservative number. And then the Maciel piece, right, which would be coming later, that piece about $580,000. And again, these are very rough numbers. So the total for all of that works out to be about 4.4. If I did my math correctly.
But the city's portion is only about 1.2 of that,
Well,
roughly.
I think the city, what we've discussed with the school district is the Maciel portion, rather than the city taking all of that we might share some of that cost with the district. That has yet to be worked out, but, the mayor certainly talked with Dr. Nichols about that a little bit. But if the city were to take all of Maciel and all of its existing right-of-way, yeah, we would be looking a little over $1 million, in terms of the city, if we were to take both of those pieces entirely.
Okay.
Did that answer your question?
Yes, it did, thank you. And just to clarify, we are going to have the right-of-ways already in place for
Yes.
any expansion or anything that may have to happen in the future?
Correct.
Okay.
So, this, and I covered that on this slide, but I didn't really talk about it, is the developer, as part of this agreement, would be dedicating the full 80 feet of right-of-way for ultimate improvement of that road. The costs that I just gave you were for improving the 60 feet of that. But there would be additional right-of-way if we want to come in and widen it or do it. And we could do that at any time under the development agreement.
Okay, excellent.
And we did estimate that if we were to decide to upgrade that road at the beginning, it'd probably be about an additional $800,000. 800, yeah. Again, we'll see where construction costs are when we get to this.
Yeah. All right, thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
That's all. Can I get the vote, please?
Councilmember Seifert,
Aye.
Councilmember Powell,
Aye.
Council President Shaw,
Aye.
Councilmember Roblesky,
Aye.
Councilmember Powell, I'm sorry, Spears,
Do I get
Aye.
2 votes?
Not today.
Awesome.
Councilmember Bartlett,
Aye.
Councilmember Denzine.
Motion passes.
All right, thank you. So now we're to the big finish, right? No, in all seriousness, this is a very important vote. So your next item is proposed ordinance 2021-316, and this would be assenting to the annexation of this approximate 118-acre property that we've been discussing. It's shown there on the graphic. And you can see it's kind of a missing link, if you will, between parts of the city on the east and west side. Just so from a filling in the blanks, it's sort of a natural that it would be annexed into the city. And we
in general like the idea of being able to control our destiny in these unincorporated areas, in terms of being able to control the quality of the homes, the density of the homes, in order to make sure our stormwater requirements are met, to get transportation improvements, and in this case, a school site. So for those overarching reasons, we think annexation can be a very good thing. So what, the lens that we have to look at annexation, since you adopted the growth policy, is policy number 7, which speaks to annexation. And what it says is if you're going to contemplate annexation for a property that's over 3 acres, it needs to be a strategic annexation. And we identify in the policy what constitutes strategic annexation, and it could be one that comes with suitable public facilities for schools, critical infrastructure as outlined. As we've talked about, this project brings an elementary school site which is needed by the district in a location that works for the district from a zoning, school zoning standpoint, and it provides for the extension of that road. So we think it meets the test of being a strategic annexation. Staff and the Planning Commission are supporting the annexation request. As I mentioned earlier, when the Planning Commission took the action to support the annexation, there was a minute action by the Planning Commission that there be a signed agreement for the school site prior to the annexation being approved. And that concludes my remarks on the annexation, and happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Move to approve the annexation.
Second.
Motion and a second. Start the discussion.
Okay, as I said, I would have more comments later. I'm ready.
Great.
Are you ready?
I hope so.
Okay. All right. When I sent out an all-call via social media to my district for the CIP, the number one thing that people wanted was a roundabout at Browns Ferry and Burr Green. The number 2 thing they wanted was a connector road, an east-west connector road. So I had multiple requests for an east-west connector road to help people get off of Browns Ferry and onto another road that would help them get home. And so this provides that. We have the new school property, which is a very strategic portion of this annexation. We have an improved intersection coming in at Halsey and Hardiman at the 90-degree turn. We have the agreement with Madison Utilities for the easement in order so that they can make their connections and do their trunk line. We also need to think about the fact that, you know, in the past when there were annexations that were proposed that the city did not want, then oftentimes Madison Utilities would say, well, we're not going to provide you water and sewer. I've been on the Madison Utilities board now for a year. That is no longer the case. It has been my experience that Madison Utilities is willing to service the county if they come, the city. I think if Tennessee wanted sewer, we might give it to them too. I don't know. That was a little smart aleck, but anyway. There are things that are going to happen no matter what we do. Developments are going to happen. They're going to be provided utilities, even if the city does not necessarily agree with them. With all of those things added up, I think this is a very attractive annexation and development for our city. It provides us many of the things that we have asked for. The fact that you agreed to the impact fee clause, so that if we do decide to, when we reopen that discussion, if we do decide to implement impact fees, they would be enacted on this. I don't know what more we could have asked you to do, except for to grow a money tree to provide money for this, because this has been a large load for you to lift, and I appreciate it. And I appreciate you, Mr. Enfinger, for your cooperation with the city and with Madison Utilities. And so therefore, my vote will be yes on this. I know there are some people that are not going to be happy with it, but I think that these advantages outweigh the consequences of 200 more houses.
So I'll add on that. So I'll just start off, my vote's gonna be yes on this as well. I've got 5 reasons for that. Number one, it's congruent with our plan, for the most part. There are some mods, and just like Teddy made a comment earlier, the one constant thing you can bet on is change, and the best plan you make, you're still gonna change it. I mean, we all do that in our own lives. So, I like what it's got, and it's pretty close to what we planned on a while back. Number two, and to me, this is, I won't say this is number one, but obviously it's number two, but, Teddy made this comment earlier, or I think he did. Regardless of whether we annex this in or not, they can still build it. And at the same time, we still get, we can get some of the benefits of it. They can still come to our restaurants, come to our gas stations that are, I don't think the lady's still here, but not on the west side, on the east side, I guess. And we can still benefit from that, but they still drive our roads. And just with the growth going on, we don't check anybody at the city limit sign and go, hey, oh, you live in Huntsville, or you live in Decatur, or you live in Taft, Tennessee, and you ain't coming in, So, regardless, they can still do that. I think with the development agreement we got, though, it gives us capability to control that, certainly with the phasing of things, and helps us work in partnership with the developer. And I do have to admit, Jeff, this is I think the 3rd one since we've implemented this, and I think Mr. Enfinger with his company and how they're doing things, for anybody else out there, it is, at least in my opinion, a model of how to work partnership hand in hand with folks, to look at the best for everybody, not just the best for one individual or one entity. And then I'll add this, and I can get as many boos on this as I want, as anybody wants, but traffic, I hear it, I get it. Traffic is, it's not ideal, but just quite frankly, I drive in Seattle, I've driven in D.C., I've driven in New York, I've driven other places. When I can make it from Research Park at 5 o'clock to downtown Madison by 5:21 and did not break any speed limit for the police, I stay below the speed limit, in 20 minutes while 30-some-odd thousand people leave work. We have a traffic inconvenience. I don't think we necessarily have a traffic like Houston, we have a problem. So I'll just say that, and john.seifert@madisonal.gov for as many complaints you want to send me. But, it's inconvenient. At the end of the day, I still love my 25 minutes on the way into work. It's peace. I can listen to the radio and enjoy it. So, same thing coming home. And by the way, I live all the way almost by county line. So, I make that trip all the time. Same time, I love the fact we got east-west thoroughfare. Connie, great point that was a lot of the comments added. And I will say, and you brought up a great point of, are people going to take that road coming off of Hardiman? And I'll be honest with you, I sure hope they do. Because at the end of the day, I'm an engineer geek. Things are going to take the path of least resistance, and that gives a parallel circuit for people to, some of that current traffic flow to make it down. So I sure hope they do, quite frankly. That'll take some of the load off. And then lastly, and certainly not least, our schools. At the end of the day, and Ms. Beebe, you brought up a very good point. It's not the schools that put us here, it's the citizens. But at the end of the day, our whole spectrum that we care about is the parks, the schools, the roads. And the schools is a big piece of that. I mean, that is what helps keep our property values up and helps what keeps everything that we're doing, shining. And so if we can plan ahead and take out one of the, I don't say the biggest cost, because obviously the building is a huge cost, but the land, and help secure for them with, an agreement that takes that part at least off the table. So future down the road, all we gotta do is work the funding source for building the school and those things. Man, I'm all for that. And it also gives them, and you heard Dr. Nichols talk earlier with the, West Madison, and being able to repurpose that and take some of that load off the other elementary schools. At the end of the day, that gives them more time, gives them more runway to look at rebalancing with those schools and maybe push this off a little further, so it gives them more time to help fund it. So, my best Forrest Gump voice, that's all I have to say about that.
I got a question, Mary Beth. Could you pull back up the road that where you had the...
I don't, it has a life.
Well, he takes it down. Hey, can we put the PowerPoint back up?
I just like messing with you.
I think so. I don't deserve it. All right. Here we go.
Right there. So I have a question. So the red piece that Jeff and them are going to build, are you going to build that in phases? Or are you building all that at one time? Or are you building that as you come down? So if one of the things is traffic, other than waiting on the schools, can we go ahead and build all the way out and go ahead and get that relief sooner than later? Because if they don't build that school till 2025, 26, maybe 27, and we've got this road 80% complete, I know we ain't gonna solve that right now, but I'd like maybe and think about why not go ahead and do that now, sooner than later, and have that road from Speakers all the way down.
Well, we can certainly look at that. We have a lot of capital projects going right now, and, as we were talking about earlier, some of them are stuck because of, legitimate reasons. So I don't want to overcommit, given everything else that we have going on right now. But that's certainly, it makes sense, and we could certainly talk with, Jeff about how we execute that. The development agreement wouldn't preclude that from happening. The development agreement doesn't require that road be phased. But the way roads are normally done is, a road like this, it would be in your preliminary plat. And so this project is likely going to have a couple of preliminary plats. We have another project that was required to build a road, and we required that they show that entire road as part of that first plat. We haven't talked with, the developer about that, but I suppose we could look at that. So it's something we could pursue.
Yeah, that is something we talked about in work session, and I'm all for that. For two reasons. A, we get economy of scales.
Yeah.
And quite honestly, the biggest thing right now is it doesn't matter if you have the money or not. It's just getting the people to do it. So if there's somebody already doing that and we can keep that rolling, I think it really makes a lot of sense to set that aside, open that road up, go ahead and get the traffic relief that would help us. And if we have to swap out some type of capital project, whatever that is, I think once we see the CIP list, I think that opens that up and allows us to do that. And at this point, without knowing all of the CIP projects that we have going, I think that's something I would support.
Well, we can, like I said, we can certainly pursue that. We have some other projects that, we're required to perform on because of other development agreements.
Absolutely.
Where we've got to do right-of-way or we've got to do X. And so, there's only so many of us. And so we'll, again, we need to make sure we can follow those existing commitments or meet those existing commitments before we promise you that we could do this ahead of schedule, if you will. Plus, there's some additional right-of-way that needs to be acquired.
I have faith in you.
Well, thank you.
I have faith in you.
Thank you. We can certainly look at it. It's a great point.
Absolutely. So for me, I think it's a great project. I know y'all have worked, and Jeff's always really good at working with the city, but, it changed so much. I was on that growth committee with Alice Lessman. I think she's already left, but we worked, and it's changed so much because it used to, if we said no, then it shut it down. So you thought you did have a growth policy. But now, just because we say no doesn't mean they're still gonna build. So I think it puts us in a, you're still gonna get those same houses, or maybe more. If you say no, you're maybe hurting yourself saying no than if you're saying yes. Like you said, at least you can maybe try to contain the beast a little bit, so.
Control.
Anyway, I think it's a great project.
I really want to thank Mary Beth and Jeff for working together on this. I really appreciate the attention to the certain points that we've brought up in previous meetings with respect to the catch-up provision, the impact fee provision, all of that. John, you nailed it when you said that the way Jeff works with us is a model, because you're so willing to listen to what it is we need. But when I saw that slide that the mayor put up with the 4 different pieces of property that are encircling us or encircling portions of Madison, and you see one with 500 to 600 high-density apartment units, and then you see another apartment, and you see another apartment, and then you look at what Mr. Enfinger is trying to build, you look at the school system that comes to us with a need, and no one works with the schools better than the city of Madison. We work hand in hand. We've done it year after year. We're planning ahead, and we're going to sit down together to figure out how we pay for growth in a positive way that does not require new taxes. We plan as well as anyone has done it, and we're going to continue to make sure that our schools maintain excellence. And so I see this, when you compare this project with everything else, when you look at what we're able to do by helping our infrastructure issues, by creating that connector road east-west. And you look at what Mr. Enfinger could have been building out there, but he's not. He could be packing 300 to 400 units out there. He's not. He's trying to build something that Madison needs, and he's working with the property owner in our schools to give our schools the next part of a growth plan that we've been working on for years. So I really do appreciate the hard work and effort that everyone has put into this.
And I'll take, did you talk yet? You already said, Mara. I'll take up the end. And again, everyone has said so many of the right things. This has really been a good project. When I talked to Mary Beth, I said, I like the project. It's the location that I had problems with because of the road safety and those kind of issues. So the fact that you've given reassurance that, yeah, we're going to address those things to the best we can. We're going to mitigate the traffic impact from this the best we can. That is good. That is a benefit. I always said when I campaigned it would be a cost-benefit analysis. And I really do believe this is a benefit to our city. It does bring in the schools. It's someplace they want to be. That's a good thing. It does bring in, I thought it was very good. You limited, you could have gone much higher, like she says, and you didn't. You limited it. You put in higher, nice-sized land, that sort of thing. The smallest was 2,000 square feet. All very good, and I do appreciate that, too. So, yeah, I did ask a lot of questions because I did have questions. And also, I believe it's interesting for everyone to hear the answers. So everybody can kind of understand where it is and how we get to this decision. And I think that's important, too. And I do appreciate the time that you've put into it. So, yeah, I'm a yes. I am a yes.
All right, if that's it, I'd like to call a vote, please.
Ready?
We're ready.
Councilmember Spears?
Aye.
Councilmember Powell?
Aye.
Council President Shaw?
Aye.
Councilmember Robleski?
Aye.
Councilmember Bartlett?
Aye.
Councilmember Denzine?
Aye.
Councilmember Seifert?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you very much. All right, we are on to item number 3, which is proposed ordinance number 2021-315, and this is assenting to the annexation of that single-family lot that you took action on the zoning for. This is at 236 Cannon Drive. Planning Commission and staff are recommending approval of this annexation.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion and second. Is there any discussion? If not, can I get the vote, please?
Councilmember Seifert?
Aye.
Councilmember Powell?
Aye.
Council President Shaw?
Aye.
Councilmember Robleski, Councilmember Spears, Councilmember Bartlett,
Aye.
Councilmember Denzine.
Motion passes.
And your next item is a resolution 2021-366R, and this is to set a public hearing date for a rezoning. The public hearing date would be on January 24th of next year. This is a property at the northwest corner of Sullivan Street and Gin Oaks Drive. The property is currently zoned B1, and the property owner is requesting to change the zoning to B2. And so you will have that public hearing in January if you approve this resolution.
Move to approve.
Second.
I have a question, Megan. I rent from Mr. Johnson. Do I need to recuse myself?
Can I get the vote, please? I was making sure we got 4 of us. Do a count.
Oh, we're losing a few.
You want me to help you with the count part?
Yeah.
No,
Same with
man, you
all.
good. You got your calculator, though, I know. Can I get the vote, please?
Yes. Councilmember Seifert,
Aye.
Councilmember Powell,
Aye.
Councilmember Robleski, Councilmember Spears, Council President Shaw, Councilmember Bartlett,
Aye.
Councilmember Denzine.
Motion passes.
Okay, and then last planning item is Resolution 2021-364-R. This is also to set a public hearing, and this is to rezone property on Slaughter Road. It's about 16 acres. The property is currently zoned R1A, and the applicant is requesting to rezone this property to agriculture. This public hearing would also be set for January 24th. Just by way of background, the applicant is proposing to do a 48-bed assisted living facility on the property, which is permitted with the ag zoning. It was a very controversial planning commission item, and I expect there will be a lot of public comments at your council meeting in January. We've let the residents in the area who were concerned about it know about the January 24th date. It is our understanding that the applicant plans on holding a town hall meeting on this project with them prior to the January 24th meeting. So we'll see how that all goes.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second. Is there any discussion?
Echo what Mary Beth said, and thank you for mentioning that. It was a lengthy discussion at Planning Commission regarding that item, so.
Is this something that, I mean, I guess you guys already made the proposal when you've seen it. Did staff support this or no?
We did support this rezoning, and for a number of reasons. And so briefly, what we did was we took, the applicant wants to do this 48-bed facility. It's 1 story, about 35 feet high. Assisted living facilities are allowed in an agricultural district. They're also allowed in a commercial district. Initially, the applicant asked for commercial zoning for the property. We talked with them about doing it as ag because assisted living would be allowed in the ag district, and the ag district permitted uses are much more similar to the R1A uses. And also the development standards for ag and R1A are very similar. Still, both have a maximum 35-foot height. So you could build a single-family house for 35 feet. You know, they could do their building. Their building's not 35 feet, but it does have a little architectural feature on it. The setbacks for ag and R1A are very, very similar. So there were a lot of comparables, you know, in trying to find a path forward, if you will, for the applicant. They operate several facilities in Alabama, and you know, and they'll be here to obviously talk about it. The neighborhood was very concerned about traffic, primarily on Slaughter Road. And then there's always the, well, what if they don't build it, you know, concern. And just having a commercial, what they would view as a commercial use. They're, you know, they're kind of commercial. They're kind of a quasi-residential use, really.
Same neighborhood that we had maybe 2 years ago, they were trying to change one of the houses on probably Roy, it looks like.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, it was up there on the corner.
Yeah, up by Roy Drive, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
yeah.
Yeah, and I'll say, I mean, just to echo what Mayor Beth said, I mean, I think the largest concern, or what we heard the most of, is the amount of traffic that this could put out onto Slaughter Road, especially, you know, daytime trips, those things. And given that just the significant amount of, you know, it's multi-jurisdictional on that road. And so it's just a cluster to work that whole, how do you widen that and work all that? And I think that was, at least what I took away from it, that was the primary, concern by most of the residents that were there. I know there were several secondary, tertiary, but that was.
Correct.
That was the biggest thing I took away.
And I think even if this project didn't happen, you know, one of the comments that was made is, you know, there's been development in the county on the east side of Slaughter Road or in the city of Huntsville, right? The Zen apartment project, you know, got built. But that's one of the ones the mayor was talking about, was being built in the unincorporated area amidst Madison. But there's been a lot of development that has not been in Madison's jurisdiction that impacts Slaughter Road. Slaughter Road has been on the books to be improved forever, and it's a complicated project to fund. And so I think even if this project didn't come forward, everybody's been very dissatisfied with Slaughter Road traffic, and they're just concerned about yet another project hitting that road. And so again, those are all things that the applicant's representative was at the Planning Commission meeting and heard. We did talk with them about delaying this public hearing for a little while until they were sure they could have their town hall meeting, but the applicant wanted to go forward. They felt comfortable that they could get a town hall meeting before the January 24th date. And they're aware of all of the issues, and so, you know, we will see. So, as staff, you know, again, because it's, you know, just this one building, and there's a large pond on this property, so a lot of this property can't be developed. Most of it is wetland, really, or it's going to be under the Army Corps of Engineers jurisdiction. So it seemed like a fairly minimal project, and we thought the ag zoning, again, was the best fit for, you know, and we'll get into that. And Johnny on staff also took a look at traffic generation for this use versus single-family homes. So we had a proposal for 17 houses on this property, single-family subdivision that didn't formally get submitted but was given to us conceptually to evaluate. And understanding that, you know, new subdivisions are something we were really careful to take a look at. You know, when somebody came and proposed doing the assisted living facility, we thought that might be a better fit long-term, so we'll see.
Mary Beth, is this actually assisted living or is this senior living?
It is, they do memory care, but, you know, some of the residents might not only be memory care, they may just be assisted. So it's not active senior living. It is assisted.
My question, because fewer of them would be driving.
Yes. Right. And so that was, you know, staff's observation in going and visiting facilities and talking. Johnny made some calls to some of the directors of the various facilities. And, you know, there's relatively little traffic. Obviously, you get guests, you have employees. But that's something that I think the applicant will have to dial in before we come to public hearing, so you have full information. And we'll certainly do some more research that as well. We looked at the ITE, which is the Institute of Transportation Engineers. We looked at the latest edition, and it gives you estimated trip generation for different kinds of uses. And so we'll take a closer look at that and make sure we've got some data for you.
Mary Beth, at what meeting did the Planning Commission receive this?
Previous meeting.
Okay,
Yeah,
so the November meeting, so will we be able to read those notes?
Yeah, those minutes. So the Planning Commission will be acting on those minutes this Thursday.
Okay.
Yeah.
We'll be able to read those before.
The agenda is still out there, though. I mean, you should be able to go.
Yeah, the staff report's out there, but if you wanted to read the
Yes,
minutes in
I
terms
would.
of the public testimony, again, the Planning Commission will be acting on those minutes Thursday night.
Great.
We got a lot of time between now and then, though. This is just setting that public hearing.
Right.
If I see it, can I get the vote, please?
Councilmember Seifert?
Aye.
Councilmember Denzine?
Aye.
Council President Shaw?
Aye.
Councilmember Robleski?
Aye.
Councilmember Spears,
Aye.
Councilmember Powell,
Aye.
Councilmember Bartlett.
Aye.
And motion passes.
Thanks very much.
Thank you, Mary Beth. IT?
Tonight, we're asking you to consider Resolution 2021-380-R, accepting a quotation from Civic Plus for media streaming and storage for a 2-year term. This is the civic media system that we talked about at the work session, and this is just to move that agreement forward.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion in a couple of seconds. Can I get the vote, please?
Councilmember Spears,
Aye.
Councilmember Robleski,
Aye.
Council President Shaw,
Aye.
Councilmember Powell,
Aye.
Councilmember Bartlett,
Aye.
Councilmember Denzine,
Aye.
Councilmember Seifert.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you, Jason. Legal?
So to follow up on what Jason just presented, I have resolution number 2021-381R, and this puts into place the policy for streaming and recording and archiving of City Council, Planning Commission, and Zoning Board of Adjustment meetings, and those are the 3 that are currently regularly televised. The points of this policy are pretty simple. First of all, the city will provide for a live streaming of the 3 types of meetings through one city contracted source that provides for city ownership of all video content, and that will be through the Civic Plus agreement that you just approved. Second, the city will record and maintain video recordings of those 3 types of meetings throughout the term of the current city council, and then the next city council will be able to decide if they want to continue that. And third, the city will maintain these recordings on the city website through your current term. We're going to be working on the right way to present them on the website, and then they will be available on the website and also through a public records request if people want to request a copy of the video as their own. And with that, we'd like to ask for your approval.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion is second. Is there any discussion?
I want to clarify one thing with Megan, just to make sure, I think I understand this to be the case, but the streaming and archiving will begin, we think, in February, according to Jason's report, so we can't actually change what we're currently doing. We're still under the previous policy with respect to using YouTube, where we keep the videos for a couple of weeks. Is that our understanding? And then we're not going to be archiving until we're able to answer public records requests with the Civic Plus system?
Correct. With the ability to report and follow up with the FOIA requests and everything, we would request that we don't do any archiving until the new system's in place.
Okay.
February date, I just want to temper everybody's expectations. Everything in the tech world is back ordered, so that we're going to do everything we can to make that February deadline, but we're still at the mercy of when we get the hardware in.
Okay, so this policy is linked to our ability to get Civic Plus up and running?
That's correct.
Okay, and the reason that we recommended doing it just for City Council, Planning Commission, and Zoning Board of Appeals was because of staffing issues that you brought to our attention, and that is currently what we are able to stream now.
That's correct.
Okay.
Are we able to maybe add like the Police Advisory Board at another time in the future, or will that be our
I'll leave that
discretion
decision to council.
in the future? Okay.
Do we need to modify the motion so that it is contingent on the implementation of Civic Plus?
That is already baked into the resolution.
Okay.
That's it. Can I get the vote, please?
Councilmember Powell,
Aye.
Councilmember Robleski,
Aye.
Council President Shaw,
Aye.
Councilmember Spears,
Aye.
Councilmember Bartlett,
Aye.
Councilmember Denzine,
Aye.
Councilmember Seifert.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Right, and the next 2 items have to do with some contracting work at Toyota Field. The first one is resolution number 2021-379R. This is to authorize a change order in the amount of $49,000 to the original construction contract for the ballpark, and this will go toward field remediation, which will involve complete replacement of the turf, which the contractors are handling under the warranty provisions of the contract. So just wanted you to be aware that this is just the city's portion of that agreement, but the contractors are going to be handling that for the city. They'll also be remediating some drainage issues and also some grading issues. And so we're asking for approval of this tonight. And the reason we're asking for this tonight is that we'd like to get the work started as soon as possible to remediate the things that we can prior to the start of the 2022 playing season. But we also need to identify the turf that the city is going to purchase as soon as possible so we can do all of the testing and inspection and have it ready to go to harvest and install after the playing season ends.
Can I get a motion?
Move to approve.
Second. Go ahead.
Motion and a second. So on this, if it's warranty, how are we paying if it's warranty? How does that work?
The city has agreed through extensive discussions to contribute a small amount to the portion of the overall cost. And the contractors are moving forward under the provisions of the contract as we requested.
All right. So does this come out of that,
$300,000.
$300,000?
It does not. It actually comes out of the original checking account for the multipurpose venue. There is about $75,000 left, and this will take up a little, over half of that.
You've been hanging out with Mary Beth.
Over, we had to spend it.
Oh, repurposing?
What was that? I'm just curious. I mean, what was the rationale for us paying for some of the warranty? I mean, I just want to understand some of that rationale.
Go ahead.
We had a lot of resistance from the contractors when we started these discussions, and then when we got to a certain point in the discussions, the city looked at its case and everything we had been able to discover so far, looked at the things that we could prove and could not prove, and we agreed to put a small portion toward the settlement. The overall cost of the remediation is over $250,000, and this is, a good bit less than half of that. So we ended up being satisfied with the amount we were putting toward it.
So I guess our other option to that would be litigation, which would cost us more than.
Okay. Thank you.
Can I get the vote, please?
Councilmember Seifert?
Aye.
Councilmember Bartlett?
Aye.
Council President Shaw?
Aye.
Councilmember Robleski?
Aye.
Councilmember Spears?
Aye.
Councilmember Powell?
Nay.
Councilmember Denzine?
Aye.
And motion passes.
All right, and the final item is Resolution 2021-374R. This is to award a bid for a backstop netting extension at Toyota Field. And as you know, if you've been to the ballpark, you've seen the netting behind home plate, and it catches foul balls, so it protects the people who are in the stands. Originally, when the ballpark was planned, that netting was only planned to cover the general seating area, but we've learned through the first season that many balls have gone up into the suites and caused some damage to property and to people there. So for the safety of the visitors to the ballpark, we wanted to get that netting raised, and we worked with the Trash Pandas and the original architect of the ballpark on plans to do that, and we put this out to bid, and then the contractor named Warner's Athletic Construction came back with a bid in the amount of $245,822. They've got great references. We've heard from the St. Louis Cardinals, and they had glowing references for them. So we'd like to go ahead and move forward with this agreement. The playing season starts in April, but there will be some college games in March, and so we'd like to get it done by March 1st.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second. Is there any discussion?
This does come out of the $300,000. Very good.
So is it replacing the netting that's there, but it's not doing that, it's just extending the netting that's there, correct?
Raising it.
Raising it.
Raising it and replacing it.
Behind the backstop, kind of.
And two things. One, when we were talking about building the venue, one of the things we asked others was, what did you miss when you were doing this? And one of the things they said was, in essence, a capital replacement fund, that in turn we could make some upgrades and have it budgeted in essence for that. I will say that Mary Beth has said that's not $300,000 to spend every year. We want to spend it now to make sure from a safety standpoint, but it is something typically when you've built a stadium, we should have 2, 3, 4 years now where we build it up. And then when you need to make a big purchase, the money's already there. So that's one of the things they talked about.
I hate to ask this, but so it goes straight up, does it also go back to the roof line? Because otherwise, if it's a very high pop-up, it ain't gonna,
No, the answer is no, it goes up. Yeah, we're not worried about a high pop-up, those
Not
don't
worried
hurt.
about- okay.
What hurts is something
A
dead
line
off that
drive.
bat that was
Yeah.
coming straight over and missing that net.
yeah,
It
just
was
clipping it.
going, balls went through the wall inside of some of those places. We were blessed to only have one person that was
Yeah.
hit.
Okay.
15, yeah. And the
That's
safety of
fine.
those suites would be much better,
Mhm.
much more better.
Okay.
Now, it can still go straight up and straight down,
Yeah.
and then we're only as good as who's paying attention and who's
Right,
the
yeah.
hot dog, so.
Yeah. Okay.
Can I get the vote, please?
Councilmember Robleski?
Aye.
Councilmember Powell?
Aye.
Council President Shaw?
Aye.
Councilmember Spears?
Aye.
Councilmember Bartlett?
Aye.
Councilmember Denzine?
Aye.
Councilmember Seifert?
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you. Corey the caboose.
As Corey's coming up here, Megan's put a lot of time into both of those things right there. There's a lot of negotiation that's going on in doing that, and so along with our team who supports her with that, thank you for all your time in putting that in.
You should be
Megan.
grateful to Megan, because now you're my favorite person. Because you're last.
I have Resolution 2021-375-R, authorizing professional services agreement with Sharon Rivers Officiating. This is for our, providing officials for our youth and adult basketball program.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion and second. Any discussion?
Who second?
Glad we're playing.
Mara and Teddy, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Can I get the vote,
Take
please?
credit.
Ready? Councilmember Robleski?
Aye.
Councilmember Powell?
Aye.
Council President Shaw?
Aye.
Councilmember Spears?
Aye.
Councilmember Bartlett?
Aye.
Councilmember Denzine?
Aye.
Councilmember Seifert?
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you, Corey. Any miscellaneous business? or
No
anything?
work session, just
Nah.
to announce that, right? No work session this month.
Not this month.
Okay.
Motion to adjourn?
Move to
Moved.
Be it.
Thank you.
With messages of hope that are so beautiful and